Hi, everyone. I'm Garrett, if you're not familiar. Over the past 2.5 and change years, I've been going through all of Final Fantasy XIV, strictly co-op, almost strictly co-op, with my good friend Kyle. Along the way, we got so into the narrative that we began making videos here on YouTube about the game's MSQ, really breaking it down piece by piece and kind of chewing on it. This is every video we made about Final Fantasy XIV's relaunched entry point, A Realm Reborn. I'll be your guide as Kyle is out because he just welcomed his third child into the world. All right, let's take a look at what we've got here first. I remember this one. This first video is affectionately titled "Recovering WoW Podcaster Tries Weeb Game." I remember this vividly. Previously, I was one of the final hosts of a long-running World of Warcraft podcast called The Instance. I also had previous WoW shows called For Azeroth and WoW Killer. I've done a lot of WoW shows. I love those shows. Still do. Still miss them. But after The Instance ended, I realized just how much I wasn't enjoying World of Warcraft at the time. I've come back around, really have enjoyed a lot of the stuff they've been doing with Classic, but at the time I was done. I was really done, and honestly, I thought I might be done with MMOs as a whole. But we decided to make this video when I realized that Final Fantasy XIV was getting its hooks in me. Enjoy. Oh, look at you, you beautiful regal bastard. Hey, buddy.
Hey, you gotta have blue hair.
Yeah, man, it's anime. What else am I gonna do? Greetings and welcome back. This is Nexus Gaming News, recorded on Tuesday, November 2nd. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, here as always with Kyle Ferguson. And today we're going to be focusing less on a headline and more on a trend because, Kyle, it happened. I have finally given in. I, a recovering World of Warcraft podcaster, have finally started playing Final Fantasy XIV.
Congratulations on getting over the hump.
What do we call it? The Weeb hump? What kind of hump is it?
There are a lot of humps. In all honesty, like just the graphics are different. And that's very shocking. There's not as much depth of field. Everything's kind of crunchy on the sides. The art direction isn't as crisp or as stylized as World of Warcraft players have come to know. And so when you see Final Fantasy, particularly see a stream where it's that much more kind of processed and crunchy, your eyes kind of go, oh no. And then you see the cat girls running around and the bunnies and all the summons, and you're like, oh man. And then people in maids dresses, you kind of go, I don't know.
Yeah, the textures are a little flat, and for me, I think, and I've mentioned this before. So, pardon if you've heard me talk about my aversion to Final Fantasy in the past, but the map system and the constant loading between zones, really throws me off and gives me a horrible sense of direction. However, in the past, I've given it like maybe an hour or two. And like try to like watch my friends play. And like you said, I don't think this is the type of thing that shows particularly well. But you know, for about 2 weeks now, I've carved out a couple hours a night to kind of go in and really like give it a chance, spend some time with it. And I was already kind of, I feel like my heart was kind of thawing to Final Fantasy, but then I haven't told you this. Do you want to know at what moment exactly the charm smashed into me like a I don't know, one might say a calamity?
Was it when you, as a longtime Blood Elf player, realized you can be very pretty?
Oh no. I mean, you realize that the moment you start making a character, you can't make an ugly character. Everyone's beautiful. Everyone is so beautiful, and I want Final Fantasy hair. I wish I had that hair. I have very wiry, wavy hair that I have to beat into submission every morning. No, it was my wife Katie. We used to play a lot of WoW together. She hasn't been an MMO player for a few years now, but she's like, "Oh, you're trying that Final Fantasy, huh? Does it have non-combat pets?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure it does." Well, let me log in. I made it to a city. Let's go look around the city and you're showing some gameplay of you and I the first time we partied up together just last night, as a matter of fact. And I went exactly where you are, which I haven't committed to memory any of these city names. I know I'm in like the pirate city. That's just what I've been calling it.
There's so little voice acting in the beginning of the game that you're not going to get much help. So we will just avoid pronouncing characters, locations, anything of that note.
And if I attempt it and get it horribly wrong, I apologize in advance. Yeah, because so far I think I've only had like 3 voice acted cutscenes, so I have no idea how to pronounce most of the stuff in this game. But yeah, the pretty pirate city. I went right there where the like the portal crystal is, where you teleport to. Because I knew I'd run through there very briefly and saw a bunch of players. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, let's go take a look. Dude, we spent 30 minutes just walking from like player to player, looking at what cool ass pet they had out. And by osmosis realized like how cool everyone dresses. And this is the first time I noticed. I was like, wait, they're not standing the same as I'm standing. That's when I figured out you could have like a pose, and people were also sitting in different poses and had their weapons drawn in different poses. And this was the moment where I had just spent, I did nothing but spend 30 minutes just looking at people and how they've customized their character and gotten their personality into this game. And I know you've mentioned bards before. I don't know if it's been on this program or not, but I walked past a bard and I definitely heard Enter Sandman being played on a harpsichord or whatever the hell the harp like instrument is in this game. And yeah, man, it felt like going to Disney when there's a theme day and, roughly 50% of the attendees are dressed up like, I don't know, like it's the Roaring 20s or something. Like it got me. I was like, okay, I think I get it. Because as a longtime player of World of Warcraft, I can't tell you the last time I went to Stormwind just to look at people and the cool tier sets that they got. I really don't think I've done it since maybe like BC era, like going to Shatrath and being like, oh, what are the cool sets that I don't have access to? And at the time, I still wasn't really using fan sites, so that type of stuff wasn't spoiled for me ahead of time. And so, yeah, it kind of recaptured that for me, that idea of learning about the game by just being in the game, by just exploring the game. And granted, I think that could happen with any new MMO, like if it's new to you, because you don't, like, I don't know anything. I haven't done a great deal of research on this game. So I've kind of like, I've gotten some tips from some friends that are playing, or just like, like they know that I'm the type of player that I kind of like to figure things out. I don't like to be too over explained going into something. So I kept hearing the same tip from everyone, which was just stick to the main story. You stick to the main story. It's got kind of the flaming icon on the quests. Just do those. You're going to level up just fine. You'll figure it out. Like, keep it simple. Just play something you think you're going to like and stick with it. And so that's what I've been doing. Beyond that, like, I don't know how to get these cool armor sets. I was asking you last night when we were playing, I'm like, does it have transmog? Is that something I can do? Can I make myself look cool? And through that, and through this kind of just like intentionally going in ignorant, I've had a really good time, and I figured it out. Like, it's just charming. Like, this game just oozes charm, even if it's not the prettiest in the world. I definitely do. I would say I still prefer the look of World of Warcraft, but yeah, damn, it's really charming. I don't play a lot of JRPGs. It's like reminding me of like Ocarina of Time levels of like to me what is like kind of weird, charming, off color, not sure it's meant to be funny Japanese influence.
And the music immediately kind of takes you to that space too.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack's really good actually. Yeah, I've been when I'm out doing more, I'll play podcasts when I'm actually out doing quests, but then when like I'm in town and I'm like, turning in quests and stuff and trying to read, I pause that stuff and I turn the game back up. And yeah, the soundtrack's charming as hell. I love it.
Well, and you brought up something that really captured me. I was pulled into the game by the soundtrack itself, because it becomes very varied. I went to Spotify, I started listening around, like, how can so many different types of music be in a single game? But you brought up just people having fun and sitting differently, standing differently, all the different outfits, no mounts in town, kind of adding to that clutter and visual just madness. bards playing, people jumping, pausing your poses so people make like, like Dragon Ball style finger touch kind of poses, because you can do a pose to a point of then freezing or syncing your dances together. There's all these little tiny things throughout the game that just let people hang out. And that hanging out equals people then going and sitting at a table and talking in the game. And they just log in for with nothing to do, and they don't care because they're just going to hang out.
It is. It really seems to have a vibrant social atmosphere, like people that go in just to, as you said, hang, which is something I used to do. I guess I would say the peak of my World of Warcraft experience, kind of in the BC Wrath of Lich King days, where I would just log in just to like talk to my guildmates and whatnot. Now, I would say back then it was still pretty rare that we would go to the same location to socialize, but if to me it was like having come out of like late 90s internet culture, it replaced like AIM for me.
Yeah, that's a very much a unique thing of that time period, that you could talk across multiple servers and then be actually coordinating with each other. There was a magic to it at that point, which is now gone just from nature of the internet existing long enough. But Final Fantasy has recaptured that feeling because there's so much to do that's not endgame. And as you said, one of the top tips people give is just enjoy the story, but it's also, treat it like a book. If you come across a chapter you don't like about characters you don't like, just put it down for a bit. Just say, okay, you're going to sit by the bedside for a bit. I'll come back to you when I'm interested. It's very much a game you have at your own pace. And in that way, it's a classic RPG. And eventually the story gets good enough like an RPG, not just good for an MMO, but actually good for an RPG.
Yeah, it's... I haven't I wouldn't say I've been floored with any of the arcs so far with the starting experience. To give everyone an idea, I think I just hit 21 or 22, and I think I'm a little over leveled because I just got my airship pass. So that's kind of where I'm at. But individual characters have really stood out to me. As someone who likes Warcraft lore, I'm one of those lore nerds that enjoys most of Warcraft lore. So that was kind of a concern coming in, as as an old WoW player. Yeah, I came from Warcraft 3, so I kind of came into that MMO already having a good idea of the state of the world and why things are important and who major players and major factions are in the fiction. And I don't know, Jack, about Final Fantasy, and something that's always kind of turned me off about the greater Final Fantasy IP as a whole is why do it seems like they're all disconnected, and each is kind of its own standalone story, and none of them have really ever grabbed me. But yeah, there's, I think I'm a little more inclined to care because of the MMO nature. This is a character that, I can work on and I can grind on and keep, it's my character for a long-term game experience, which is, what an MMO is. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think, I've been really grumpy about this game, and I think it's been working in its favor. I think I went in I'm not going to care about any of this stuff. I'm just going to skip. I went in expecting to skip through dialogue, and I found myself slowing down way more often than not. Every once in a while, like you said, there'd be a character I'm like, this feels like it's not going to be integral to the bigger plot, and it's not really grabbing me, and I would just skip through that stuff. But every time I'm in that pirate town, I don't know the dude's name, but the guy that runs the inn, is your main point of contact throughout most of the starting zone. I love that guy. He's great. I have a hard time reading what the hell he's saying because it's written in pirate speak, but I find him charming as hell. So every time he pops back up, I take my time and read. It takes longer too, because again, I have no idea what he's saying, but.
Well, and that's that charm that so many people have talked about, the Jaina knows your name sort of factor. Someone says, good to see you again. You're like, you're right. I do know you. Oh, geez, let me remember what happened last time I was here.
That's again, I don't know why, probably because I don't play JRPGs, right? So it makes me think of playing Zelda games where I would walk into the shop and the shopkeep would be like, Link, how you doing? I got a new shield for you. That's what it feels like while the quirky music plays in the background.
Definitely.
So it's landing in a way, I don't know. I figured there was something charming with how much this MMO has been popping off and people have been flocking to it, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting to find charm in the places I did personally. It's just, yeah, like I said, I think I went in with I think going in being like, all right, I'm probably not going to like this, I think helped. I was like, oh, I am kind of having a good time. I've been shopping around for an MMO. I've tried ESO. I tried New World. ESO is too different. I think it's too good. It plays like an Elder Scrolls game and it feels like an Elder Scrolls game. And I think that's a good thing, but I have to pay a little too much attention. I need my tab targeting. I want to be able to listen to a podcast while I enjoy this. And to me, Final Fantasy, it is that. It's different enough from WoW while still adjacent enough, similar enough, where I don't feel like I'm taking my entire MMO mindset and tossing it out the window.
Oh, there's a billion people out there who are saying, I fall asleep to this game and that's a good thing. It is just chill. You're reading, it's tab targeting, it's slow, you're walking through town.
It's a part of MMOs that I don't think it's talked about enough, which is there is a passiveness that I kind of look for, and I don't think I actively really acknowledge it enough or think about it enough. To me, I think being able to passively play an MMO is something I do look for, because I play enough other games that are, kind of require more real-time nuance and reaction time, whereas there's something very relaxing about tab targeting and just going out on a what I would consider a traditional run-of-the-mill MMO quest.
Something that also just jumped out to me was the flashiness of abilities. Coming from World of Warcraft, where your biggest warrior cooldown will be 3 shields barely hovering in front of your face, to suddenly a full bunker summoning around me.
I would go to bat for Shockwave and WoW. I like that. I think that's a cooler looking ability than what you just described. But yes, I'm also, I think, interested in making it different for myself, because I've never played a caster for a long period of time in World of Warcraft. I think the longest I ever stuck with a caster was a warlock for maybe one patch cycle in raiding, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to tanking. I miss tanking. But I started with what's the starter class, because I know there's a difference. This is how fresh I am to this. I know there's a difference. There's you pick a class to start with, but then eventually you declare a job, and that's more of what WoW fans think of as a traditional class, because it's more specialized, right? So I think the class for caster is called Arcanist or something. If you do the starter caster class, I don't know. Anyway,
they divide off. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I started with, and so I've got this little, what the hell is it called? I even looked it up because I couldn't remember the damn
your Pokemon
pets are called carbuncles, which is just ridiculous. Makes me laugh. I love that they're called carbuncles. They look like glowing Eevees as a Pokemon fan, but yeah, so that's what I'm rolling around with. And so also by that nature, of rolling around as a caster, it feels different enough, while the tab targeting and having an action bar feels familiar. And I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, dude, the casting animations are great. Well, I mean, they're so on brand, anime dramatic.
And you can turn them up and down, by the way, in the options. There are no add-ons in this game at all that you need to prepare, because everything's in the game for you with little levers. So if you think everyone else being flashy is frustrating, well, you just go in there and pull down their bar until you can't see them anymore, and you're the only one flashing to such a degree, should you choose. Or if your own abilities are too flashy, you can't see where you're supposed to stand in a raid, you might turn those down as well.
This is probably a good time to kind of talk about kind of tips just for being a new player, because I got to say, I think the number one thing that improved my play experience over anything else was turning off the damn player nameplates, because every time I would go through town, it was nothing but text, because that's how many damn people are playing this game. Not that the wait is long, but that's the other thing. I knew this was popular, but if I log in to try and knock out a few quests over lunch, in the middle of the day, there is still a wait. It's usually less than a minute to get in, but dear God.
I had to do that as well. Yeah, so you also have pet names active, and it is very overwhelming. The systems menu and the character menu there can really, really help out with that stuff. Also, something that I immediately was concerned about was that there's no looting of things you kill.
Yeah, that one took a while, coming from WoW. Killing something, it is just it is an actual like rhythmic memory. It's just muscle memory. Kill something, right click. And it took probably 3 days for me to stop doing that.
It's a tough thing to get over, but it's little conveniences like that, those little character bits in the game, like having no racial bonuses for what you're selecting, what you're building, and saying, wait, can this one guy really be all these jobs? That once you kind of get into the game, you go, oh yeah, well, why would I stop to loot all the time? I'm the warrior of light after all. I don't got time to bend over every time I kill something. And you just you start to feel that rhythm.
Yeah, it's much more about just get out and like get to playing, and it's amazing what it's no looting feels minor, but when you do it as much as you do in a game like World of Warcraft, playing a game that controls very similarly, it just feels so much more fluid as a result, because you're removing this one very minor thing, but it's a minor thing that you do constantly, and now that's out, so there's this kind of constant. The action feels more constant as a result, which I liked. I liked quite a bit. So I know you're I think of you as not new, but I know like you're still a newer player compared to, folks that have been playing for years.
Oh yeah.
What were some things that made your life a lot easier that I should probably know about?
Okay, so what I put up on screen here, and we'll include the link to this as well, is the important blue quests. Because when I got in the game, there were 3 different kinds of quests.
I have a story about this.
There were the flamey exclamation points, there were plus sign blue exclamation points, and then there were normal exclamation points. So like a good World of Warcraft player, I hit the road and I just went, oh, give me. I grabbed every quest I possibly could, and they all seemed really disjointed, and none of them were taking me to centralized areas where I was completing them at the same time. I became massively over-leveled. All you do is just play the main story quests and then take breaks anytime you have job quests.
Yeah, and do the blue job quests, right?
Those are very important.
This is my story. We logged in. You're like, let's group up. We haven't played together yet. You seem to be enjoying it. I think you were like secretly waiting, like, is Garrett gonna bounce off of this? This is gonna be another stupid hobby that he doesn't stick with. So we finally log in last night, and you're like, yeah, let's go do stuff together. And then somehow by some virtue of wondering where I was along my progression, you were like, well, have you been doing your blue job quests? I'm like, what? And then sure enough, I go back to find out, like I go visit the Arcanist Guild, and I had a level 10 quest sitting there waiting for me. I was level 20 last night, Kyle. So I do this level 10 quest, and I get my second carbuncle, which gives me like a shield ability and is a little more about survivability. And I think to myself, boy, this would have been really helpful 10 levels ago.
It's easy to let those things pass by.
Yes, there's nothing else on that side of the main city. So there's no real reason to kind of passively stop into the Arcanist Guild. And I had just kind of forgotten about it. Like clearly early on, you get a quest to go out there and mess with it. But luckily, I'm pretty sure, because now I'm locked out again, I think, until like a mid-20 quest. So I'm pretty sure that was the only major ability I missed, because I didn't get anything else. And if I did, I am unaware of it. So please comment below if you went through the caster starting experience and I missed something horrible.
You want to know something else you didn't miss?
What else did I not miss?
Talent points.
Oh, you're right. There's no talent points.
Right. And when you play World of Warcraft, it can feel like it's this really important part of customizing your character. You need those rewards every level. But as you just mentioned, you didn't even notice. You didn't even notice you were really leveling. You were just playing the game. It's one of those things we feel like is required, but you play a different game and all of a sudden you're like, wait, well, maybe this isn't such a big deal. But back to the blue quest for a moment here. All the blue quests are optional unlocks, and not all of them are terribly important. Go through this list and find the ones you really find interesting, like level 15, that's when you unlock your glamours, which is the name of your transmogs. You can unlock the hair cutter and that sort of thing through these smaller story quests. Hunting log, challenge log is a really important one if you're looking for bonus XP. Just getting that from the beginning means you'll be getting more XP along the side. So I'll hook you up with that, Garrett. The challenge log is something I missed out for a very long time, and I hit a lot of XP walls because of it.
Okay, so I need to do that. I definitely want to unlock haircuts because, I mean, this game is weeb as hell, and it's got some great haircuts.
Yeah, I look good.
that you do. Also, some of the starter gear it is so unintentionally hilarious. Like I am wearing fuchsia tights with like high heeled sandals as a male character, and I love it. Like I look fabulous. It's great.
I was a gladiator into paladin, so I was very much like doublets and chainmails and stuff of that note, including one ridiculous full armor set with the sort of nose cone visor.
Nice. Yeah, there's a really wide swath of styles of armor in this game, which I really like. As someone who definitely comes to MMOs partially for the paper doll aspect of things.
Definitely. Well, it's an important part of that, and make sure you unlock those glamours along the way. Beyond that, a lot of the stuff is going to be just trial and error as you get into it. But I think my biggest concern was money and fast travel. And you shouldn't be concerned. And you should fast travel all the time. Just teleport everywhere. And don't think about it.
At the moment, I feel like I'm burning through Gil faster than... because I have been teleporting, and I feel like I'm burning through it at a rate that I'm uncomfortable with.
Don't think about it. Don't worry about your money. It's not a big deal. Just go teleport. Click the quest on the side. Click the map. Click where you're going, and just keep teleporting everywhere. You're gonna traverse this continent a billion times by the time done with the main story quest of just a Realm Reborn.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like I'm kind of wrapping my head around is that like. It seems like there's a full arc to be completed that is the original quote unquote Realm Reborn aspect of Final Fantasy XIV.
You mean the old content that's a bit old?
That's my idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that you do kind of want to see that through to completion, or do you kind of have to?
For the main story quest, you must.
Okay. Gotcha. So it is basically required. Gotcha.
And it is older. There's a couple of the Kill 3 kind of quests. The characters aren't really all that evolved. It was more of a production thing. Even once you complete the first set of raids, as it were, that climaxes the storyline for A Realm Reborn, you enter the quest that they put out between the expansions, between A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word, and things start getting a lot more character-driven. Voice acting becomes more important. They dramatically change the cast from what you would know as more of like traditional Funimation anime voiceover styles to actual like BBC radio produced kind of actors, and they understand the lore better. With your old Funimations, like they're often just saying things. The actors are there for an hour and they got to say all the lines, and they don't exactly make sense, nor do they know who they're talking to or what they're talking about. That really changes once you get over the hump that is A Realm Reborn.
Gotcha. Okay. Because it hasn't seemed too crusty to me, for lack of a better word.
The translations are amazing, even to the point where they make sure to include what we would know as like references and English puns to our quest names. And you can be like, wait, what's this? Is it the same in Japanese? Probably not. There's an extremely, I've heard great praise of the translation team over and over again. It's well written. But as you mentioned, sometimes you're reading pirate speak and it's hard to read. Let's blow through a couple of other common mistakes before we end, just for anybody who out there who needs to hear these. There are positionals in this game if you're certain classes. There are flanks and there are rears. Flanks are attack from the side for bonus. Rear is attack from the back. If you don't know that, you might be attacking from the wrong place. You make sure you have your Oath on as tank, because you basically have infinite aggro at that point. But otherwise, you're not tanking. Healers do damage too. There is no leveling class. If you're from World of Warcraft, you might think, oh no, I'm playing like a healer. I must be leveling slower than everybody else. Not the case. Everybody does about the same damage across the board. Once you're in a group, it's about what job you have to do. Tanks stop doing as much damage because they're working on aggro, and healers stop damaging as much because now they're helping everybody heal. But no one's going to get mad at you for not being at 100%. The limit break bar is everyone's. Tanks don't use it. And anything else? Oh, the suggest gear button on your character sheet. It's perfect. It works.
You showed me that last night, and it has made the game so much easier.
It actually suggests good gear, and you can just press that every time you get something if you're confused.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Rings were like weirdly hard for me to decipher in the beginning because the stats are kind of subtle, and it helped me with those big time.
Yeah, weapons are most important, chests, then legs, but go for item level over everything else if you don't understand the stats, and there are like 30 different stat types.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've just started using the item, like the equipment suggestions, right? The other thing that like kind of threw me for a loop was, robes eat up my hat slot. So you need to do math if you're like, well, is a robe worth it, or should I wear chest and hat? Like, again, or head slot, I guess.
You can't get into that math, but the suggest gear button works just fine.
Yes, I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying that. Definitely comment below if you can kind of quickly explain when maybe I should not be suggesting gear. I'm kind of curious what folks who have played this much longer than me have to add to it. But yeah, man, you're coming from World of Warcraft. I'm surprised how much I like this because I tend to have an aversion to anything that has a whiff of JRPG.
Well, welcome to you. Know that I'm being intensely cagey in my excitement. There's a lot of things I don't want to accidentally build up anything for you, but I'm very, very excited to have you play in.
You're very good about not overselling things, which I appreciate about you. So anyways, let us know, folks, what are your favorite beginner tips for Realm Reborn? Please comment below and school me. I legitimately want explanations because I feel like I've spent enough time going in ignorantly and kind of learning naturally through the game. So now I'm kind of like, all right, what I'm asking everyone I know, what do you wish you knew at the beginning of playing a Realm Reborn? So comment below. I think it's going to wrap it up for this one. Go ahead and follow Kyle and me on Twitter. Kyle is at Kyle Ferguson. I am at Garrett Art. You can talk to us directly on there. Other than that, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell to take control over the algorithm. We upload every Tuesday afternoon. For our podcast listeners, don't forget to subscribe if you're streaming the podcast version because that helps us out as well. Other than that, send your emails to feedback@nexusgamingnews.com. Until next time, good luck and have fun, everyone. This next video is where I started to realize just how damn active the Final Fantasy XIV community is. I learned a ton about playing this game from the comments section of just one video, our first Final Fantasy XIV video. So, here it is.
So where'd you get to?
Where'd I get to?
Where are you at in the game?
Literally minutes ago, dude. I just ran. Pronunciations give me so much anxiety in this game. Hawk Manor is how I'm going to choose to pronounce that one. I just ran Hawk Manor.
Okay, the haunted house.
Dude, I loved it. That is my favorite thing I've done so far in game.
So you did the Bowl of Embers, and you didn't tell me. You weren't at all impressed.
Bowl of Embers?
The Bowl of Embers with Ifrit, the big alien-looking aliens with the horns and jumping from the moon that was on fire, and the big ring of fire, and the crystal that jumped out of his chest, and the music was blaring.
I did. I don't think I noticed he jumped from the moon. I thought didn't he just kind of summon his ass out of fire?
You weren't the least bit impressed for that. That was the moment when I was sold in the game, and you blew by it.
Yes. I didn't think, honestly, dude, I didn't think it was that good of a set piece. Greetings and welcome back. This is Nexus Gaming News. I'm Garrett Weinzierl here as always with Kyle Ferguson. And today our Final Fantasy XIV exploration continues. I'm thinking about renaming the channel on the podcast feed because we just keep talking about this damn game. Because you did it, Kyle. You did what everyone on Twitter has been trying to do, and you finally got me to give this game an honest try, and I'm consistently playing now.
Awesome.
Anyways, our last video, Kyle, boy, a lot of folks were like, I would describe in the comments of the YouTube video, stoked to share tips on things that they wish they knew when they started playing Final Fantasy XIV. I have done my best to go through and like read each and every one of those damn things. And there's hundreds of comments at this point. So thank you for the warm welcome, everybody. Even those of you that think I'm drinking the copium, I believe is the cool phrase when it comes to preferring the art direction of World of Warcraft, which I stand by. Stand by that.
They're passionate.
I like more stylized stuff. You know, straightforward anime. It's cool. It's fine.
Stoke that fire.
I just like that's what I like, man. I like illustrative. I like painterly looking art direction, which is not Final Fantasy, but it is totally growing on me. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a really good time, and I'm having even better time now that I've learned a ton from talking to the community. And that's what today's episode is going to be, because we got a ton of tips in our YouTube comments on the last video, like I mentioned, and some have improved my play and your play so much that we wanted to make sure and share them. So we've kind of cherry picked some of the more common and most helpful tips that we received. We're not going to go through them all. We would be here for a week on this video. But before we get to the tips, there was one, what I would say, a bit of a mantra that appeared in the comments. Mentioning that A Realm Reborn is either where you bounce off or you get assimilated into the Final Fantasy XIV fandom.
Become a walking advertisement. And this was, quote unquote, said multiple times throughout our comments.
Which is good to know. I definitely have personally gotten, there's little beats where I'm trying my best to be patient and read all the quest text, because in ARR, there's not a lot of voice acting. You got to read everything. And I'm trying to be patient. But, you know, you get on those quest chains where it's like, go to this guy, then go back to this guy, then go back to that guy again, and then back to this guy. And they just kind of keep saying things like, we need to find the dude with the mask over and over again. I start to get bored and I stop reading at that point. However, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at kind of recognizing when it's going to be kind of a boring, not all that important bit of quest text to read, and when it is actually kind of worth my time. And if nothing else, I've kind of started picking characters. Like there's characters that I've been latching onto, and as a result, I've actually been reading some quest text. And yeah, I got to say, a lot of more than not, the quest text I find is like pretty amusing, like kind of witty. I'm not horrendously bored by actually trying to learn the lore of this world.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
But let's get to the most common tips we received. And one of the biggest ones was to go do the Hall of Novice. I stumbled upon the Hall of Novice just naturally, because it's like right around when you get sent to do your first dungeon.
But it is a side quest, and it's very easy to miss, and it's also like a long list of MMO things you probably know already, particularly if you're from a tab targeting MMO. So it's very easy to be like, oh, this isn't that important for me. However, inside of it is a ring called the Brand New Ring that gives you increased 30% XP when level 30 and below.
That might explain part of the reason I'm leveling so damn fast. There's a lot of reasons for leveling so damn fast. And one of the tips I'm not going to mention is so many folks were like, eat, for the love of God, just eat eggs, eat whatever food you find. It always gives you an experience bonus. And I was talking to my stream and I was like, am I right to feel like I don't really need to worry about this too much? Because I'm currently about 17 levels higher than the quest that I'm doing.
I think it's adorable. I hit a lot of XP walls going up through the main quest, and this community wants us to enjoy the game, and they're scared that if you hit an XP wall, you might drop it and you lose your spot.
That's fair.
And kind of like Witcher or any sort of giant RPG, go, I forgot where I was. I'm done with the game.
Nah, I think if you stick to the tip that we talked about last week, which was like just stick to the MSQ your first time through, you can take a break as long as you want and just click up in the top left. It'll tell you what to go do. But anyway, I like the Hall of Novice. What I liked most about it was I got like my first matching set of armor, and I'm a total goth wizard, and it's wonderful.
Congratulations.
I want emo ass black robes, Kyle. That's all I need.
I think the game can provide.
So the next tip that we got a lot of, and we did talk about this a little bit, but we didn't go into too far a detail, was to not use the suggest a gear feature if you're tanking. which I believe you made quick mention of, but this came up many, many times in the comments, which was that was really more or less, especially if you're new to the game like I am, the only time where you shouldn't use suggest gear, which I have been using and abusing like crazy since you informed me of that button's existence.
Right. And you as a spellcaster type do not need to worry about it. This is strictly for tanks because your item level in the below 50 areas is more important to the suggested gear button than the actual stats on it. So you'll end up in what would we know from World of Warcraft as DPS gear, when you should be looking at more of a defensive build if you're tanking.
Yeah, there were a few mentions of a more technical reason you wouldn't use it, which I guess is if you're pushing extremely high-end raid content, you're going off of lists of best in slot gear. But apparently that's even for like the higher difficulties of raiding content. So it sounds like something I will not need to worry about for quite a long time.
No, keep using that button.
If ever. All right, are you ready for a potentially scandalous tip that was suggested many, many times?
Oh. How many times, Garrett?
Kyle, how do you feel about breaking the TOS?
No, oh, well, hang on. They've said it's okay.
Wait, so this is still technically, so the tip is to install G-Shade. So
yes.
Probably the most controversial remark I made last week was when I said, it looks fine. I don't think it looks all that great. Those of you who weren't yelling at me that World of Warcraft is the most hideous thing you've ever looked at, you were suggesting G-Shade, which is apparently a third-party add-on that really pumps up the visuals for Final Fantasy XIV. And I saw in the comments, it's comments though, right? Like, so I don't know how much to believe it. Like multiple people mentioned, hey, it's against the TOS, but they seem cool with it.
They are.
I'm like, are y'all just trolling me? Because
no. The producers have gotten on the forums and straight up said, this does not affect gameplay nor the sort of culture we've built. It will get you banned if you post DPS meters in this game, because that's a third-party add-on that you're running that disrupts the environment. G-Shade, I'm feeling it a little bit, because I ended up at my new base, which you'll find eventually, where the lights go from above, and I look quite handsome, to down below, and they give me these weird, like, sunken cheeks. It's kind of like Mass Effect, where the camera spins around Shepard for the first time, and you go, oh no, I'm hideous. Suddenly, in this new lighting environment that I'm constantly ending up in for the main story quest, I kind of look ugly. So I will report back. I'm going to install G-Shade this week to see if I can fix my handsome.
Okay, cool. And then you can show me how to do it, because it looks kind of complicated.
Yeah, it does look complicated.
I'm not the most handy with those sorts of things. Another tip that came up a ton of times, Kyle, was the need to attune to the smaller aetheryte crystals that are spread out all over major cities. That came up quite a few times.
Yeah.
So I did notice this before we posted the last video, and I just have this sinking feeling that this was posted in the comments to make me talk about how embarrassed I felt when I did realize that I needed to click on each and every one of these stupid blue butts. I think I had been playing for like 6 or 7 days at that point before I realized that A, this was something you could do, and B, you had to go and click on all of them. I thought you clicked on one and it gave you like the whole network. Yeah, I felt really dumb.
That's an interesting error. However, I had a completely different one that I didn't figure out until this week. Level 52, Garrett. And I didn't realize that the big crystal you teleport in on also counts as one of these crystals you can teleport from.
Yes, I did that too. That was even later. Although apparently I figured it out before you. So I feel, congratulations, Kyle, you're dumber than me.
Perfect. I figured it was like a portal. You go through the portal in WoW, and you do not turn around and like interact with that portal. You keep walking. So when I got to my main city, what I'd do is I'd go there, I'd run past the always dancing Pope, and I'd run all the way to the very first aetheryte crystal I could find, which was a long way. I didn't know I could just turn around and then go straight to the Gladiators Guild.
It's same. So I was, I forget the name of the companies, but I went with the one that is based in Limsa because I love the pirate, like nautical theme. Big fan. Definitely not because I have a crush on the leader at all. Not whatsoever. So I would port in and I would immediately run through like the north instance up to the upper decks, because if you go through that, then there's one of those small aetheryte crystals right freaking there. And that was my thing. Every time I would use my return to Limsa, I would run past the big crystal, go up the stairs, wait for it to load. It's on an SSD. It doesn't take that long, but still. And then I would click on the aetheryte crystal because, I just like you, I didn't know that you click on the giant aetheryte crystals to use the inner city network. Yeah, and that I don't think was mentioned in our YouTube comments. And if it was, and you mentioned it, I apologize. I clearly missed it. But yeah, there's the tip from us two dummies. This made my life a lot easier once I figured that out.
Well, while it wasn't brought up this week, be sure to check your bags for little tiny letters with a red seal. It'll let you teleport directly to the Waking Sands. That comes up quite a bit.
Is it okay if I speak for you when I say that this next tip blew both of our minds?
That's okay.
Okay, cool. Because apparently you can re-enter the area of a telegraphed attack as soon as the telegraph marker disappears. The damage is not actually doled out by the animation itself. It's like I guess it's painting an area is the best way I would describe it, Kyle. Like if you're staring in the area as it's painted and then it assigns damage to that area, then you take the damage from the attack. But if the marker, the telegraph disappears, and you just step right back in front of whatever AoE is going off, you don't get damaged by it.
Right, you're almost highlighted like a turn-based RPG. If you exist in that zone, when it completes its charge, you will be damaged regardless of where you now stand. So one thing to note, and particularly coming from World of Warcraft, where the animations are very much directly tied to the attacks, animations in Final Fantasy don't really matter. And that's a huge sweeping statement. I apologize for saying so, but that is the best way to understand it. Auto attack animations don't matter. Animations when they charge this area and then explode, or things fall from the ceiling, or lasers are shot. If you were outside that cone when it completed, you can walk right back in, regardless of what the boss looks like it's hitting you with.
Yeah, now that I understand that too, I honestly gotta say I find it to be kind of a cool differentiator from other MMOs that I've played. Like just from I guess an aesthetic standpoint, it's kind of cool that it's like, no, I'm gonna step back into this fire now because I'm just that much of a badass.
It's also really important to note for tanking, because after they do when they're in their charge, they will be standing still usually. Then they complete their charge and begin their attack. They might be free to move now. So if you are a tank and you step outside the zone and then linger, they will adjust their position having completed their charge. So get right back in where you were.
Speaking of animations and just the way that this game handles attacks and cooldowns and abilities and all of that stuff, turns out that there is a very big difference between a regular global cooldown abilities and off global cooldown abilities. Essentially, you can use one of the others when the other global cooldown is going. So if your regular GCD is going, you can use an off GCD ability and vice versa, is my understanding. Right. I have so few abilities that are unique that I'm not sure. I'm a level 40 something summoner at the moment is the best example of this in game.
Right. So off global cooldown abilities are what really fill out your kit as you get into that level 40, 50 area and make your play a lot more complex. When you first start, everything will be on global cooldown. So you hit a button, all the abilities spin. What you want to do is eventually reach a system where you're casting a on global cooldown ability and then an off global cooldown ability during that spin to maximize your throughput and your damage. This is where that auto attack thing I mentioned comes in. As long as you are in range of the thing you are auto attacking, as perhaps a melee like I am, auto attacks will continue to flow regardless of what your character's doing in animation. So I have a number of attacks that have me do this crazy combo swingy thing. During that, I'm auto attacking normally. And in fact, if I were to use Shelltron, which summons a huge giant shell over me of armor, graphically, I stop auto attacking and I stop delivering the ability I was just doing. That ability still goes through. That's why I say animations don't matter for your own sanity. So if you feel like you've interrupted your cast in another MMO, that didn't happen. Your animation is playing for your off global cooldown ability. your on global cooldown ability is still functioning.
It's been an interesting thing. Like I said, at least at the moment where I'm at, I think I only have 2 abilities. Like my big nuke ability is not on the regular GCD. I noticed, which is really handy. But I'm trying to, and I haven't committed to memory all of the summoner abilities. Actually, pretty much none of them have I committed to memory yet. And I honestly have been trying not to think too hard about it because I guess summoner is about to change wildly once Endwalker hits.
I think you'll be fine. You'll adapt to it. One way to tell these is by looking as if they're weapons, skills, spells, or abilities, and that'll differentiate these 2 abilities apart. As you get more advanced in the game, you want to do 2 off global cooldown abilities between each global cooldown rotation. However, for now, just focus on doing 1 and use them frequently. Our cooldowns in other MMOs are massive 30-minute long things. Here, use them between trash pulls, pop them as often as you can. You're meant to be cycling through this stuff a lot.
Yeah. I finally got an ability that as a summoner, and I know this is all changing, allows me to spread my dots in like AoE fashion. It spreads out everything in a radius, and what an absolute massive quality of life of improvement that is now that I'm running through these dungeons. Part of that too was me being so over level. I had it for a while, but I wasn't able to use it in the dungeons I was running.
That could happen. It's very crunchy, and I know this is probably the crunchiest part of the conversation tips we had today, but it introduced to me the depth that this game had, where previously I thought it might have been in error. And, having that long of a global cooldown across all your abilities, it wasn't terribly thrilling.
Yeah, it seems to play a very large role into how rotations are supposed to play out. Like once you understand that and you get that you can weave in, off global cooldown abilities in between your regular global cooldown, it just makes a lot more sense. And it feels so much crisper. As someone who's played a ton of tab targeting ass World of Warcraft for more than a decade and a half, I'm really enjoying the way rotations play out in Final Fantasy. And I'm still leveling, so I'm sure I'm going to have a much busier bar when I get to the end of this. Anyways, I think that brings us to the end of this. Thank you so much, everybody, for your tips and your comments. I really appreciate it. You've legitimately helped me. I know we talked about last week, I believe it came up, because I think some of the comments in there were about how Final Fantasy fan sites aren't as robust as some of the big names in a game like World of Warcraft. And that's certainly something that I noticed. I kept running into where guides would be like, all right, go get your job quest. That was the thing I kept running into, but nowhere did it mention that you needed to be as far along on you have to be past a certain point on the MSQ before that job quest will unlock. All of the guides I read make it a really big deal that you're of a certain level to go do your job quest. But because of the speed at which I'm leveling, I'm so over level, it is much more important for me to know at what point along the MSQ I need to be to go unlock that job quest. And I've yet to find a good resource for any sort of guide that informs me of that. So anyway, long story short, learning from actual players of the game has been legitimately helpful. Which, I don't know, I'm not too used to in games, Kyle.
I got lost trying to figure out the achievement vendor so I could get a special ring that ended up being outclassed eventually, but I did the hunting log. There's a lot. There's so many different ways to play this game, and there's not a rush to the end game that those sort of sites haven't really developed in order to streamline that process. And it's a interesting bit of the game, and I really enjoyed getting to learn from all the comments we had last time. If I were to request comments this time, I want to hear people sell us on jobs. I want to know what classes you enjoy, because right now I've just been sticking to the same thing because I'm enjoying the story. I'd love to get some information about why I should play a red mage. What is that? What bar system am I going to be using in there?
Yeah, folks have told me that red mage is kind of a combo of really cool fire effects, but also melee abilities. Because I mentioned that I went into this intentionally trying to get out of my comfort zone because I have historically not played casters in MMOs. So I was like, all right, I want a different experience. So that's why I rolled Arcanist, and that's why I'm kind of sticking with Summoner at the moment. But Red Mage sounds very intriguing because once I mentioned that, some folks were saying that I should give Red Mage a try when I get there. So if there's other things you think I should try, I mean, historically, I like Paladins, Warriors, those types of characters. And I got to say, the giant effing swords that exist in this MMO. I was like, I kind of wanted to see what that's like. So let me know your favorite melee jobs that you think I should try. I'd appreciate that.
And tell me a little bit about some of these, like the culture things that go on with different classes. I always hear people trashing ninjas because they're bad or standing in the wrong. Why? Why do these various jobs have these stereotypes about them? And
are ninjas the hunter of Final Fantasy?
I don't know, but they're always getting like thrown around in tier lists or something. I'm trying to figure this out. Honestly, I really just want to be a Reaper. That sounds awesome.
I don't know what they do, but
nobody does yet. It's part of NWAP, but it has a big site, and it looks really cool.
Nice. Well, anyways, that brings us to the end of this episode. Comment below with the job or class you think we should try. If you want to get in touch with us, you can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Ferguson. I am at Garrett Art, 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. I trust you know how to spell art. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to take control over the algorithm. And you'll get the latest uploads from Kyle and me. We are switching our uploads to every Wednesday morning. It's going to give us just a little bit more time to edit anything we need to. Last couple episodes really came down to the wire. So we're like, you know what? We're going to do Wednesday mornings are going to be our uploads over at youtube.com/amovetv. And for all of our podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe if you're streaming the podcast version. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Nexus Gaming News. Until next time, good luck and have fun, everyone. Oh, wow. Yeah. This is the first video I have no memory of recording, but I did review it before this. And I remember feeling the things that I talk about in this video. I mean, still to this day, I rave about how cool I think Garuda is. 14 really started to pop off for me at this point. Enjoy reliving the first time I ever died in Final Fantasy XIV.
There was a tie-in event for Nier Automata. You know, what the white hair and the blindfold and the nice butt. That is really important, that nice butt part. So what happened is they added a glamour where you could wear their boots. You can get the full Nier outfit and you can wear her boots. Well, there was a bug that made your butt particularly shapely, bubbly, perhaps. And they're like, we're sorry, community. We're so sorry. This is a bug. We'll fix it. And the community uproared. And they said, no, you leave that bugged butt in. So our very own Dancing Pope, that's why he has such a rocking set of cheeks.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is Nexus Gaming News. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, here as always with Kyle Ferguson. And Kyle, I thought today, it's Thanksgiving week. We're about to get out of here and eat too much. Figured let's just sit down. We've been getting to know Final Fantasy and the Final Fantasy community. I figured maybe they can get to know us and we can check in on how our leveling is going in FF14.
Yeah,
because I've done a lot of it.
1 month of Final Fantasy for you and 1 month of investigation for me.
Oh, an investigation?
Well, getting to know the community, mainly streaming. When you practice alone, you make bad habits. So I've been streaming a lot of my gameplay, which means I've learned a lot of the ins and outs, the culture, the do's and don'ts. Mostly about making your buttocks look good in certain boots.
Your buttocks look good?
Yes. It's very important stuff.
Okay, so you've been investigating how to be sexier.
It's important. It's important. It's a sexy game.
I had kind of forgotten how sexy it could be. I recently fought a harpy and Garuda. And yes, oh my. This is a thirsty game, Kyle. But yeah, I've been learning just a ton from the comments on our past videos that have covered Final Fantasy at this point. Keep those tips coming from the seasoned players. It has really been helping me and helping me learn about the game. So thank you. Thank you for everyone to continue to school this old WoW player. I really had a good time reading about everyone's favorite jobs last week, but I ran into something that I wasn't expecting, which is the 2 jobs that sound the most interesting to me are Red Mage and Samurai, and I guess they're part of Heaven's Ward. But I'm past 50 now, so can I go pick them up, or do I need to get the Heaven's Ward first?
You don't have to get to the expansion. In fact, Red Mage is there in Udal for you to go grab now. But I don't know if there's like main story stuff, like you have to beat a Realm Reborn. You just have to
Gotcha.
own the expansion, even though you can get it at 50.
That makes sense. Okay, that's cool. I mean, all of this kind of leads to the next question I did kind of want to ask our viewers and our listeners, because for me, in my experience, my mileage has really varied trying to find like good resource websites for Final Fantasy XIV. Coming from WoW, so I'm used to having things like Wowhead on tap, which are very robust. So what's everyone's like go-to Final Fantasy XIV resources? What websites do you go to follow along? Now I've learned, I know, like, at least as far as like leveling and making sure I go and get my job quest, that I should just be keeping an eye on that top left corner. Although at the moment it's still telling me to go to a job quest that's blocked out until I defeat another primal, which I literally just defeated, so I should go do that. I'm remembering this as I'm saying this. But anyways, I want to know where everyone's getting their info. What are your favorite guides? What are your favorite websites? You're further ahead than me, so do you want to know where this noob scrub is?
Absolutely. I feel like you've been going pretty fast through the game, so I'm curious to know what your quest has been like.
I have, and I've been a little quicker about kind of skipping through stuff that seems not as important, but I hit a major escalation of the story when I went and fought the Primal Garuda, which if you've fought before, I'm sure you're aware of the escalation of the story I'm mentioning, and we're going to talk about it here. So, bit of a spoiler warning. Maybe you are leveling alongside with us for the first time. There will be a Realm Reborn spoilers, at least for me, up until the end of the Primal Garuda fight. But quite a bit has happened since we did our last video, starting with a Titan further down the food chain, which is I defeated Titan, which is also the first time I died playing Final Fantasy.
Oh, yes, the confusing circle of red.
That's not what happened.
No,
I didn't
really?
die by falling off of the breaking platform.
Oh, okay.
I've fought the Lich King in Wrath of the Lich King, Kyle. I know of collapsing circular platform when I see one. No, I don't know. We'll cut in some footage here of the fight, so maybe astute viewers can tell me exactly what the hell went wrong. But I think our healer kept dying. I'm pretty sure our healer just kept dying, and then eventually we died. So yeah, not only was fighting Titan my first death, but I believe it was also my second, third, and maybe fourth death. I forget how many damn times we died. We died a lot.
But you kept the same group.
We did. I noticed, I guess you gain power every time you die. I don't know if that's every instance, because it's like, story required. Although I guess every instance so far has been story required.
Right. It wants to make sure you get through it, just as it offers you the chance, should you die or fail a mission on the main story quest while playing alone, to lower the difficulty for yourself.
Yeah, but this time I was seeing a message I had never seen before. It was talking about how you would get a buff every time you die.
Okay. Well, I mean, so I think the biggest achievement that you had was going through the pre-Titan storyline stuff, because that is very, very old school MMO grindy.
Yeah, I did start to get bored. This is probably the most bored I've been in the game so far, was kind of that pre-Titan lull. Some of it was still funny. I enjoyed going around and getting like the stinky cheese for the fancy dinner party. Like, that's the type of like absurdist humor I do enjoy in my MMO.
Yeah, it was cute, right? You do the fake fetch quests for the guy who's pretending to be the champion, and then you get in a rock battle with him, and then you accidentally make dinner for your own feast.
Yes, that whole bit was great. I liked him and his costume. He's got wonderful thighs.
That he does.
But I feel like it was almost perfect. Like right around the time I started getting, I would classify it as horribly bored. I beat Titan, and I was just thinking to myself, if I have to go back to what I call the office room out in the Waking Sands and talk to Minfilia again, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm so sick of going back to this stupid room and having meetings. And that's where, spoiler alert, shit hits the fan. People start dying, and I care, Kyle. I don't think it was on one of these. I believe I was streaming, and folks were asking if I was getting into the story at all. And they were asking about like the different races in the different, major cities that we deal with. And I believe, who are the plant people? The Sylph?
Oh yeah, the ones who
floating-
chatter ever so slightly with Grandma Good Cookies.
And someone was asking me what I thought of them, and I was like, their design, not my favorite thing in the world. However, and I do believe on stream I said, there's this one wearing like a sad mask, and I love it dearly. So...
Oh yeah, it got kicked.
I was really, really bummed. In the last week, I have gone through some emotions playing through the Realm Reborn MSQ, and I can't believe they made me go pick up bodies and have a cast bar that is of varying lengths. The cast goes quicker if they're smaller races, which I was like, that is the crudest game design joke. It's just like, oh yeah, no, the little ones, you pick them up a lot faster.
Right. Carry multiples. It is a fascinating exploration of what lame parts in video games can do. Like Lord of the Rings, you gotta walk across some mountains, and while we are wowed through New Zealand, it's not the most, thrilling part of that movie. However, the journey is very important. So when you walk down that hallway for the 1000th time, and it bores you to tears as you hit another loading screen, when it changes, when the lights are different, suddenly you have a lot of emotions.
That's exactly it, right? Like I've been told, it was like, people are like, no, pay attention. Like even minor characters, they're important later, or you're going to care more about them than you think. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm sure you're into it. You're already a fan. I'm coming to it from a somewhat skeptical viewpoint. But as I keep kind of finding out, like, yeah, hearing common sentiments, there's a reason they become common. Like a lot of people kind of have similar experiences and kind of get to these points where, you thought that character wasn't all that important. It turns out, they kind of are. And if you do get even a little bit attached to them, you're gonna have to deal with some downturns in the happy-go-lucky story up to this point. Like I said, I thought the timing was almost perfect. Like right where I was like, oh man, I'm kind of getting a little bored with the formulaic beat a primal, go back to the office and have your office meeting and go back out into the world. That's when the story kind of blows all of that up and breaks the pattern that it had set up until that point. Basically everything past Titan I've been really enjoying. Obviously, as a summoner, I know that you haven't played one. Your job quests as a summoner are really, really tightly tied to the MSQ. The reason I was having so much trouble knowing when the hell to go back to get my job is because I didn't realize they were like directly tied to defeating the primals. Because you have to wait until you defeat the primal to get your new summon, because the summon is like a lesser version of the primal.
Okay.
It's like tied to the primal. I'm sure I'm butchering the lore here, but
you got a Pokemon catch the primal's essence, and now you can summon it.
Yeah. Beat Efreet and got an Efreet Eggy, beat Titan, got a Titan Eggy, so that's my latest Eggy, and now that I have just defeated Garuda, I now have a new job quest I can go do to get my Air Eggy.
Nice.
It's really, all the pieces are kind of falling into place, and now I don't feel so lost, and it's cool. I like having this, as fun as it is to come to a new game, like completely ignorant. It's nice to feel like I know what I'm doing when I log in each day.
I'm really happy that your class quest is good, because Paladin is awful. Really dull, with an unlikable leader who keeps being like, I'll resolve to do better. Just get out of here and make me king of the Paladins. You are a bore.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's
I wouldn't say, I'm not really tied to anyone I'm interacting with in my job quests. Like I couldn't tell you who the lady is that I keep going to by the falls to get my job quests. I don't know her name. She's not really standing out to me as a character. However, I guess I did just get attacked by some evil summoner on one of my my summoning quests. So that was a surprise. And again, it was like this right around the moment where I'm like, yeah, I know how these job quests go. I talk to the lady, I go out to the place, I kill an elemental that is somehow related to the primal I just defeated, and then I learn my new summon. But then this one, it kind of, again, threw a monkey wrench into everything. Like, oh, it's an evil summoner. It was very Team Rocket. It's like, here's my Pokemon, here's your Pokemon, let's fight.
So mine was, I do very much the same thing, except for I take an artifact and then defend it from monkeys for a time while they attack the artifact. And then it's like, you now remember the ancient secrets of the Paladin. It makes no sense. Paladin's going to be one of the main classes, jobs in Endwalker, and I think that's kind of to make up for all this and give us some heading.
Okay, so you've got some bones to pick with the paladin stuff.
But I'm enjoying it otherwise. And I love tanking, and I love sword and board tanking.
I mean, I do too. I'm sure I'll pick one up eventually. Again, though, really want to try Red Mage and Samurai. After everyone's comments that pertain to those two, they just sounded like two things I would really like. Dark Knight piqued my interest as well.
Oh yeah.
But it seemed almost too on the nose for me. It's like, oh, it's dark and evil and it has giant swords and wears like Hot Topic armor. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, that might be a little too on brand. Who knows? Maybe I should like all things just give in to what people are telling me to do and enjoy myself.
Right. Don't go down that road with Final Fantasy. That is what we are literally here to do. I'm most excited for a class called Reaper that has a scythe. Like, just don't let your fear of cool get in the way of you enjoying the cheese. Because it's going to be cheesy.
I'm really enjoying the cheese. I think that's a big part of the reason this game has endeared itself to me in relatively short time. I mean, I guess, yeah, it has been a month now of us both. Well, you played it longer, but us kind of covering it on the show and me playing it with any regularity.
Well, and so it's been a month for me since I sort of publicly announced I'm playing this and started streaming it. And in that time, I've learned a ton, not only from these YouTube comments, but just from getting on my streams and figuring out things like G-Shade, which was one of our number one requests when we talked about the art in this game at all. Your colors are just saturated. They're just not they don't pop. Your depth of field is off. That's why you don't like the art in Final Fantasy. You gotta get G-Shade. And so that was one of the big projects I had this week.
I went and looked at some guides, and I didn't love how it made the game look. So it kind of made me appreciate the base look of the game.
This is about seeing things in motion, and when you really pop out those colors, when spells are flying, and when that lighting is hitting the wall from the spells, that's where it gets interesting, and that's where you have an emotional connection with this. So I did not care when I was standing on top of a building, looking out into the distance and adjusting my graphics. Didn't really care. Green's more green. Hurrah. I cared when I got to the Golden Saucer, and all the lights of the casino were reflecting off my armor now.
Maybe I should still give it a try. I've been really enjoying just getting in and playing, so I haven't gotten to a point where I want to just kind of stop and tinker. I don't want to tinker right now. I just want to play.
The main story quest takes a bit of a pause, if you will. Credits roll on your A Realm Reborn experience, and you have every single patch of story to go through until you get to Heaven's Ward. And that's where I'm at right now, and it changes tone pretty frequently, as you can expect from any MMO. I'm gonna go explore. I've got a lot of questions to answer, like going out to the Golden Saucer. I did that this week. And that was frankly quite awesome.
This has been the number one question I get from people is, hey, Garrett. I go, yeah. Almost as like hushed whispers. Have you done the Golden Saucer yet? I'm just like, is it, I think I even asked someone in the comments last week, wait, is it great or is it infamous?
It's great. One thing WoW players do to describe it is they say, oh, it's like a permanent Dark Moon fair. The Dark Moon fair in comparison is like your local state fair. This is Disneyland. Maybe even Disney World. The Golden Saucer is a rather immersive experience. And the fact that there are so many people actively playing these games welled me up. I'm not going to lie. It was the Dark Portal kind of opening moment of just realizing, oh my God, this MMO is full of people. These are all real people playing this dumb game with me. And we're all doing the jump puzzle and trying to collect Cactus Men trophies.
But so it was like the night that I just spent hanging out by the Aether Ray Crystal in Limsa, just looking at pets and costumes.
Very much so. It is. And nobody wears their armor. I was the only guy in there like wearing questing gear. Everybody dresses up. Everyone puts on their casual clothes, their fancy ball dresses. It was really an experience. There are some, lame mini games. It's all about getting this special currency that you can turn in for more dances and pets and even armors for your transmog kind of system, your glamours. There's the whole set called the Emperor's New Shield, which I found fascinating, being that you can have invisible clothes. So if you want to run around your underwear, you could transmog yourself and do invisible stuff. Or in this case, they gave me the option to be a paladin with a shield, but my shield's invisible. So I look like I'm blocking it on my arm. And that might be a fantasy I want to fulfill. Like there's a lot of optional things in there. There's big jackpot systems, but mostly I really, really enjoyed the gates, which is I believe every 30-minute event where there's some sort of challenge, and it can be a platforming puzzle, it can be a dodge the stuff kind of puzzle, very much like a raid mechanic in that way.
I like how much people are into how they look in this game.
And I actually found out an interesting story about that this week. So there was a tie-in event for Nier Automata. You know, what the white hair and the blindfold and the nice butt. That is really important, that nice butt part. So what happened is they added a glamour where you could wear their boots. You can get the full Nier outfit and you can wear her boots. Well, there was a bug that made your butt particularly shapely, bubbly, perhaps. And they're like, we're sorry, community. We're so sorry. This is a bug. We'll fix it. And the community uproared. And they said, no, you leave that bugged butt in. So our very own dancing Pope, that's why he has such a rocking set of cheeks, is because he's wearing the Nier set of boots while he dances. Otherwise, your butt's rather flat and normal.
Did you just school me on the lore behind amazing badonkadonks?
If you see a butt that is particularly shapely and you see them in black boots, that is the reason.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nier.
Thank you, Nier, for your service.
Ass folk world round, thank Nier. Well, that's amazing. I didn't intend for this episode to be the ass episode, but yeah, that was like my reaction with the Garuda loading screen. I was just like, oh, that's a camera angle.
Yeah, the camera goes where it will.
That is for damn sure. By the way, dude, the Garuda fight, that was my moment like you had with the Ifrit.
Oh, cool. Okay.
There's a moment where boss organ music starts to swell. And Garuda also does, like, straight up to me, as someone who hasn't really played a lot of Final Fantasy, so my Japanese adventure game of choice is definitely Zelda. Her evil laugh reminds me so very much of Ocarina of Time.
Oh yes, it's very much the oh ho ho kind of on the back of the wrist sort of thing. Oh, that's fascinating. So for me it was fire, and for you it was wind, and the windy business got you interested.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was the best skybox I've seen so far. That whirling vortex of wind is a very cool effect. But I don't think it was the wind so much as just like creepy laughter and organ music. It made me think of Ganondorf has the organ in Ocarina of Time, which is, I haven't thought of Ocarina of Time in a really long time. I realize it's like one of the most famous video games of all time, but for me, it's something that really lives in my brain as something that I was playing in my very early teens. I haven't revisited it in like 20 years.
Sure, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah. So that's the thing again, is like it's been so long since I've really let myself get lost in a Japanese game that, like, I realize that this is normal if you're a Final Fantasy fan, but as someone who isn't, it's reminding me of all the Japanese games I grew up playing, in a good way, without it being extremely nostalgic, if that makes any sense. Because again, it's like I don't really have a big tie to Final Fantasy. I played a few of them growing up. It's more just kind of like this. It's like nostalgic for like a feeling or an aesthetic or a sense of humor. It just keeps hitting me while playing through this, and I think it's another big reason it's kept me going. But now, I mean, obviously, the spoilers for the Garuda fight. Things go so sideways. I mean, there's some video game shit that happens in that fight where, like, all the bosses you've defeated so far have been summoned, and here's a giant evil robot that's going to eat them and absorb their powers.
Yeah, but the Empire is shameless.
I keep calling that dude Darth Gaius too, because I was like,
yeah.
Gaius. I don't remember the rest of his title, and he just looks like a Final Fantasy Darth Vader.
You ran around with two dudes called Biggs and Wedge for like 3 hours, so it is on the nose.
Oh my god! And then got the airship. I'm not even a big Star Trek fan, and it's like Enterprise engage.
Enterprise engage.
And I'm like, wow, they really went for it.
Yeah,
They just, this is like a major story point, and they made a Star Trek reference out of it. Okay.
They had to reborn the world. They had 2 years or 1 year or whatever, and they said, you know, it doesn't matter to me. Let's get this game done.
I'm stoked. Like, I want to get back in there right now and just keep pushing that story forward because I want to see how this ends. And I'm really stoked to get to Heaven's Ward. And it sounds like there's a lot in between there and where I'd like to be.
You got some required raids to do, some of your first big ones there. There's going to be a lot of side questing that kind of adds to the world and sets it up in a very interesting way, but it is pretty big, and it's what's prompted my exploration of other things for now.
Yeah, I've been doing this tempo switch of, all right, breeze through the quest text. All right, stop. This seems important. I'm going to read and absorb it. And I feel like I haven't really missed out on too much story-wise. We'll see, because I know so many of these characters continue to come back like way down the line. Don't worry, folks. I'll admit if I made a horrible error and can't remember where certain characters came from.
I think you got him. You got your emotions played with some music and some wind and some laughter. It sounds like you're invested, and whether you choose to read every single text, that's more your personal style.
Thank you for not judging me. Let's see if anyone else does. Well, that brings us to the end of yet another episode. Don't forget to comment below and let us know what guides and website resources you like for Final Fantasy XIV. I still haven't really noticed a trend of the ones that are helpful for me. And yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, follow Kyle at Kyle Ferguson on Twitter, and I am at Garrett Art. Other than that, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and we'll see you in a week's time with more Nexus Gaming news. Until then, good luck and have fun, everyone. All right. Yeah. All right. It's time for our first set of credits ever in Final Fantasy XIV. And also the shortest lived name change on this channel. We really thought that we should keep Nexus somewhere in the title. Kyle and me, we had a really long running Heroes of the Storm show called Into the Nexus. Meant a lot to us. We wanted to keep some form of that around for a while. And then I don't know. I don't even remember. I think one day we were just like, oh, grinding gear, GG. Hey, that'll be fun. Let's just call it that. And that's what we went with. But yeah, the Nexus grind didn't stick around for very long, but this is a good video. Check it out. Greetings and welcome back. This is Nexus Gaming News. Oh, wait, I changed this. This is not updated.
Honestly, I'd use that as the intro, and then just and then we'll do the bah.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone. I'm Garrett Weinzierl here as always with Kyle Ferguson, and a bit of a title change today as well. We're going to start calling this the Nexus Grind for the foreseeable future, as both you, Kyle, and myself we're really enjoying Final Fantasy XIV, and it would appear that many of you enjoy following along with our experience, as we get to know Eorzea. Me a little more than you, Kyle. You're kind of already moved in. I feel like you don't have that many more boxes to unpack.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But you did it. You did the Praetorium.
I did. Apparently, it was. I was warned that it's a bit of a slog. I went in with my guard up. The slog, the slog didn't come in the form that I expected. Once again, Kyle, I, as a World of Warcraft refugee, when I hear, oh, it's going to be a slog, I go, oh, it's gonna be a lot of trash. It's gonna be a lot of trash and mobs, because I knew this is essential. It was, because it's not. I shouldn't use past tense because mofos still run this thing like crazy. This was the shortest queue I've had for anything so far.
Yes, it is a well-regarded little dungeon run because it awards a lot of tombstones, is my understanding, and you can put on Netflix in the background so you don't have to pay attention. So they call it Netflix and chill, Netflix roulette. There's a whole number of different phrases that encapsulate what the Praetorium is and why it's great for points.
Yeah, and obviously I haven't gotten into any of that. This is my first time through the MSQ. I have to do it to move on. So getting back to that, like all, you and other friends of mine that, are much more seasoned than you or I am with Final Fantasy, they were saying, hey, just so you know, when you get the Praetorium, it's kind of exciting as your first raid, but also no, it's kind of slow. It's kind of a slog. And like I was saying, the slog did not present itself in the way I'd expected, which I, coming from WoW, I thought it was going to be trash. But no, it came about like because of like age-old Final Fantasy trope that I had honestly forgotten about. But cutscenes. It is just a cutscene palooza in this freaking raid. And I have no idea. I have so many questions of a technical nature that I have not bothered to go research. But like in a game where like it's felt like as someone who's been over level basically the entire time I've been doing the MSQ, I've been seeing you're going to be leveled down to a maximum of whatever, and you're not going to be able to use half of your abilities and yada, yada, yada. I guess that doesn't happen in the Praetorium because we were just melting shit like crazy. It just felt like taking 5 steps between cutscenes.
It is. It's a madhouse. Personally, my experience in the Castrum Meridium, the Castrum, right before it, the one you did before this with the airships that were randomly crashing.
Castrium, milk, whatever. I don't know.
It was complete chaos. It was absolute chaos. And this I found to be way more sane because at least the cutscenes were long enough that I could get my bearings. However, I almost died multiple times because I didn't click the elevator fast enough, didn't click the key fast enough, and got left behind.
So my experience with that was I did actually go looking up guides like before I went into this. I was like, all right, I just did Castrium and I felt useless, but also boss fights didn't take all that long, so it didn't really end up being a huge issue. But I knew the Praetorium was going to be longer. So I went and looked up guides, and I could not find any guides that actually told me what the bosses did. The guides were just like, hey, newbie, here's the guide. Keep up and click these things so that you don't die. That was it. Every guide I found, it said nothing about the bosses. It was just how to keep up as tanks essentially skip trash.
It's a bad
Which
house.
makes sense. Yeah, we cleared a few times. And you've got my footage up if you're watching on video. And so, yeah, there were a few times where we cleared trash and, took the time. But it didn't take much time at all. And none of this is really... a complaint. It was interesting, my expectations set by other players and then going in and actually having the experience, because no one really explained that it took long because of the cutscenes. I assumed it was going to be more of a like just kind of a gameplay slog, but yeah, it really just comes down to the cutscenes, which this I did look into. You can't skip ever. No. I guess, like even if every single damn person currently running it has done it before, you can't skip these cutscenes, and also clicking doesn't advance the text like it does in normal cutscenes so far.
But you can imagine why. It's part of it's the climax of A Realm Reborn, and people are using it to farm. So naturally, what would happen is the baby gate, they call it, the little sort of circle you can't leave, would go up. Everyone would start typing about how so-and-so's not going fast enough, so-and-so needs to skip, and pressures would build across 45 minutes to an hour as people slowly go insane because they know they can't advance. Instead, what they've done is forced everybody to sit through it, and so people mute and watch Netflix. And it's not a big deal. And as you mentioned, your climax was very queuable. You got to just say, hey, I'm ready for the end. Please, let's do the Praetorium, and it happened.
Yeah, it is super unique to anything I've really experienced in any other MMO. And I think overall, in a good way. Like, I think it's really cool. I've seen some criticism from some other folks that, have limited game time. And it's like, I wish I wasn't forced into grouping up. And I can understand that. But at the same time, again, coming from other MMOs, looking at you, World of Warcraft, you just skip all the story. It's really kind of... I know everything that's going on in World of Warcraft because I've played it since the beginning, but when I've had friends come in at various steps along the way of the various many years that game has existed, I got to fill them in. They have no idea what the hell's going on. Because once you hit a certain level, in that game, you're told by every guide in existence and players, oh, you're good, move on to the next expansion. You can just be like, but wait, what happened with Illidan? But wait, what happened with Arthas? You don't know. So here, while it might be I could see where you might find it odd, and I find it odd, but not in a bad way, that you're like forced to do this whole content and you can't skip the cutscenes or any of that. They seem to have found a pretty good like symbiotic way to do this, where it's still worth it for seasoned players to go back and revisit this content, and therefore the queues are still extremely manageable for new players who have to do this content to move on. It's I don't know. I don't know. It should sound insane, and but like it should sound insane to say what a novel idea, making players play through the story. But it really does feel that way to me.
It's at some point we're gonna do our WoW versus Final Fantasy versus WoW, and both have amazing features that I wish the other had. The decoupling of dungeons from story is one of the greatest mistakes that WoW ever made, and allowing players to get to max level without experiencing any sort of MMO-isms is frankly insane. So the fact that you are thrust into a raid scenario like this, even if it is full of tradition and things you don't understand going on, and farming and speed running, it still just gives you that out of your shell moment that you need to grow and participate in the world as a role player or just as a player in general. I'm a tank, and the fact that I've been forced to tank this many things along my road to max level is very, very healthy.
Yeah, and you know what you talked about, where it's kind of a speed run, and it is. I mean, these bosses went down so fast. I even died once. I'm not even sure how. If we end up showing the footage, I'm sure someone will point it out. But I like, again, my brain just started firing off with comparisons of the MMOs I played, and just kind of dissecting the decisions made here to, again, make players play through this. And it's like, yeah, like maybe, if we all wanted to sit around and have a discussion about what would be the perfect way for a new player experience, well, it'd probably be something a little slower where you actually get to kind of experience the boss fight and learn the mechanics. But like overall, again, when I talked about that kind of like that symbiosis between seasoned players and new players, both, kind of one being forced to and one being incentivized to play this, like I think they really have landed on something that works for like the long term.
It would be great if this had a legitimate challenge to it. It felt like it was an event. I found that happening constantly throughout my smaller party, my 4-man groups, when I was doing the actual duties and dungeons. These sort of farm opportunities are not that, and yeah, it's a little disappointing that maybe your climax didn't have an edge of difficulty.
Yeah, which I think to a certain degree, like knowing how MMOs work, and I don't feel as great of a pull to get to endgame as I do in something like WoW. It's still there. Like I want to play with my friends, and I know I can, but like I want to play with them in new stuff or current stuff. So I am still excited to get there, but not nearly to the extent I've been in something like Warcraft. And so, yeah, overall too, like the other thing that really hit me, and this has kind of been hitting me over and over again with Final Fantasy, is just how damn video gamey it feels. Like, and I know that probably sounds a little weird, but like, I don't know, getting to this raid and it's just being like, oh, all of the baddies you've seen so far, let's trot them out like it's a Ninja Turtles beat 'em up. Like, I loved it. It was great. It was like, cool. I've seen this person, conniving in the shadows, and I've seen this person being a jerk and a bastard, and I got to fight them all. I got to fight Nero. I got to fight Gaius. I got to fight the Ultimate Weapon. We even got to like save our buddy from having a way cooler costume in that black robe.
Yes. Yeah, it's something that Final Fantasy does very well, and sometimes it's frightening how fast they can introduce a character, make you care, and then do something with them in the story. Whereas many, many other RPGs tend to just let that go
WoW.
by.
I know you're thinking about WoW.
I'm talking about all RPGs here. Like your Diablos, your BioWares, there's a lot of throwaway side characters that don't get used again, general guardsmen that you don't know the names of, and here you're going to learn their names. I mean, for instance, right here on screen, we have you meeting again your robot mount, which has like some kind of emotional elemental connection to you. Is that essential to the plot? Probably not. but it's a nice touch.
Yeah. Oh, the Magitech armor. You're talking about that thing that essentially becomes like a loyal dog.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so. Again, it was like weird. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. And by the end, I was like feeling a weird sense of kinship for this animate object.
Yeah.
I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Like overall. Yeah. Both like parts of my brain, like the interesting game design decisions, like that was firing off, plus like having some guard up for Praetorium. I was still hoping for like kind of a anime ass ending, and I definitely got that. Like some of these,
yes you did,
dude, some of these set pieces, they were really freaking good. They're like the way this game, like in this final act of like, what do people refer to this as, like OG Realm Reborn? Because you get credits roll, and I know you have to go through all the Realm Reborn patches after this before moving on to the expansion. It feels like, oh yeah, I beat Realm Reborn, and now it's time for Realm Reborn, like, you know, patch time or whatever. Because, you know, again, they literally roll credits.
It's a big credit deal too. Like they make a whole show of it, and it's kind of nice to feel like you beat something in an MMO.
Yeah, that's another kind of unique feeling, right? In this final act, like there's multiple times where I'm just like, wow, that was the coolest explosion I've ever seen in an MMO.
It's that thing that fog or blur they do around the explosions or a monster roaring that really kind of gives it that energy, and I just really dig it.
Yeah, there's like when you get to the end of the Ultima weapon fight, and Thancred, like, does Thancred detonate, or I think it detonates itself or whatever, like, and it just destroys everything. No, it's Thancred, because there's like a MacGuffin stored in the Ultima weapon, and Thancred like detonates it, and you know, smoke clears, and it's just like everything's destroyed, and you're standing in this giant circle of fire. I didn't know it's what I wanted, but it was exactly what I wanted. Like, it was just like, oh yeah, cool, this feels super badass. And it's just, I don't know, it's nice. It's nice to kind of like, I like everything. I love like weird shades of gray. Are they good? Are they bad? Or whatever. But I'm really, so far, it's refreshing, and it's nice to come to Final Fantasy, and it's just like, you are good, they are bad. Let's fight the bad guys.
Did you not enjoy the final boss, which isn't the final boss actually, but Gaius going Super Saiyan for you? Even though it didn't have the power or difficulty it perhaps had in the past, it was still a great moment.
Oh, when his freaking armor turns gold?
Yes. When Warframe goes gold. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it's wonderful. And also just the elevator. You want to talk about like video game. Again, sure. It's like, I wasn't expecting to think of Ninja Turtle fighting games, but yeah, you know, Gaius appears and you're on the endless elevator. It's great. It really just it as someone who didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy, it is triggering a lot of like childhood gaming nostalgia for me.
Absolutely. There's few better ways to put it than a video game. We see this in Resident Evils, we see this in Metal Gear Solids. There's just something that's so campy but joyous about it.
Yeah. No, I keep when I'm talking to friends, like, and this has even come up in the last few episodes, like when I'm talking about this game, I keep using the term like hammy or corny, and I mean it with all of the endearment I possibly can, because it is hammy, it is corny, but I think that's a big part of the charm to all of it. You know, as I'm not the biggest anime fan in the world, but it's scratching that itch. I have those ones that I like, and I love when you just get over dramatic.
Gaius certainly is over dramatic.
Oh yes. So yeah, I mean, set pieces are great. I think this is the best the game has looked so far. Like I feel I'm finally seeing what everyone's been talking about in the comments, which is like, no, it'll get there. It gets pretty. Don't worry, because some of the stuff happened in these cutscenes. It just looks great.
People do a really good job of not overhyping it, but there are elements in the between patches that already have made me go, oh, wow. Oh, this was nothing. And that's really exciting, because for an MMO, even the models being this active is quite refreshing.
That's a good point.
You know, no, but Gaius didn't jump from a upper area with a kind of float and his arms out to the side and then land, and you sort of saw him clip into the next animation while he started heading towards you. It was a performance. It was planned out.
Yeah, again, it's like I have so little experience playing Final Fantasy. I played a lot of 10, and that was kind of it for me. But this reminds me of it. It obviously, like, thank God there's no random encounters or anything. That was something that really kind of killed Final Fantasy for me growing up. These just like these dramatic present villains, and just kind of the theatrics of it all. It's very, very present.
How interesting an MMO is made of people and characters, and this one's full of people and characters.
It damn well is.
So you went through the bosses, you went through the many, many bosses. What'd you think of the ending?
Oh, dude. Listen, I loved rewatching Return of the Jedi and all over again, but with anime.
It's a good ending. So, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
This was the most Star Wars ass ending I've seen in a long time. Again, it's like this thing where like this game keeps making me think of things that I don't expect to think of while playing it. And I think it was last episode we talked about like some of the in-game references, and that's fine, and that's on the nose. But multiple times, the ending of Castrium when you, or no, it's not the end of Castrium, it's the end of Praetorium when you escape on the Magitech armor. Like there's just 1-to-1 getting out of the Death Star. It is 100% the end of Return of the Jedi. The only thing that was missing was the Yahoo at the end. That's all they needed.
Okay, I forgot. I kind of forgot about you running on your new sentient mount down, which they give to you right after, by the way, which is fabulous, and it flies.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I saw it. I did go past a little bit, and I was like, all right, what's the next quest to kind of tease up, the next leg of things. So I was like, oh yay, I'm back in Vesper Bay, but it doesn't look like we're going to be there for long, which makes me very happy.
Yeah, no, you've got that thing. It's now in your inventory. Mount selection. Enjoy it. It has a whole flying mode. It's great, but. Yeah, I didn't really make the connection about the exploding down the tunnel, Lando and the Millennium Falcon business.
Yeah, well, that happened. I'm like, okay, this needed a woohoo, and then its turn to the Star Wars side would be complete. But the other thing that absolutely was just like, oh, we're just back in Return of the Jedi was like that credit sequence. Like everyone's palling around. All it needed was the Ewok Yub Nub song.
Yes, it was rightfully cheesy. I like that they teed up a little bit that there's more to come in the actual, final cutscene there. What really impressed me in an emotional way was like just the size of the credits and the thanking of players who played the original. That was really cool.
Oh, is that what like the secondary and like third? There were so many credits like after essentially the part with like the cinematic where you're watching everyone kind of deal with Gaius's death and all of that. There were extra credits on like black backgrounds that you had to individually skip. Was that the one because it was like the survivors of Meteor or whatever?
Right, exactly. And all the names were weird, and so that's what prompted me to look up what's going on.
That I figured that was the case. I'm coming in hot. Like I just finished Praetorium like an hour ago before this recording, so I didn't have a chance to go look that up. So I'm glad. I figured that was the case. So I'm happy to know that that's exactly what that was. Yeah. So overall, like I'm definitely in, man. Like I'm just gonna keep playing this game.
Yeah. But why would you stop now?
Yeah. So I think my my path to the Final Fantasy side is complete.
Well, I look forward to talk to you about the upcoming patch missions, of which there are 3 stories, one of which I do not give a damn about, and one of which I think is damn awesome.
Do I get to go? Don't overly spoil. Do I get to go hang out with like city leaders again? Because I miss hanging out with the pirates in Lemsa.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. There's a bit of table action, yeah.
After this big operatic ending, I'm like, boy, I want to just go back and hang out with like the bartender in Limsa.
Pray, return to the sands first.
I did already.
Oh, well then, then you're on your
Everyone
way.
was clapping for me. They
Yeah.
were so proud. They were like proud parents at a t-ball game.
You're the hero of the world, man. Nice job.
Well, rad. Well, let me know, folks, what you how would you tee up what's about to come from A Realm Reborn? You know, you don't need to overhype me or anything, and you know, I'm not super averse to spoilers because honestly, there's been a few things I've seen where people are like, "Shh, spoilers," and I'm like, I don't. If it is a spoiler, I don't understand anything that was just typed.
I don't know that person. I don't know that name. Or it's fine.
Yeah. So I appreciate the concern, everyone, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. So yeah, let me know how would you tee up what's about to come, and also what should I go do now that's not a really blatant part of the MSQ? Any blue quests I should definitely go do. I've already gotten Clamor. I've already gotten Dyes. I've done that stuff. I just the other day went and apparently I could have done this a while ago. Went and got did the quest where I can make my Chocobo fight for me.
Oh yeah,
Which I love, by the way. I love that I can do that. I've become very attached to my Chocobo. But yeah, let me know what I should go. What housekeeping should I do before I push through into the rest of the Realm Reborn patches? But I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of what we are now calling the Nexus Grind. If you want to get in touch with us outside of these uploads, follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Ferguson. I can be found at Garrett Art. And of course, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We upload now Wednesday mornings. If that hasn't already become apparent, that's our new upload day. Gives a little bit of extra time for editing. And for our podcast listeners, please don't forget to subscribe if you are streaming the podcast version. It's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Nexus Grind. And until next time, good luck and have fun, everyone. Oh yeah. I remember this one. This is our first end of year video. We always try to do something a little special for our last video of the year because we usually take like a 2-week break for Christmas and New Year's. It's less of an MSQ focus, but I think it's really important to the story of Kyle and me and our journey with this game. Yeah, I remember it super vividly because it felt like a prophecy fulfilled that I was actually enjoying this game at this point, which has kind of been a major arc throughout the channel over the years. The meanest thing anyone says is that you just keep yelling copium at me whenever I say anything positive about World of Warcraft. Copium. We've got copium here. And that's fine. Greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is Grinding Gear. I'm Garrett Weinzel here as always with Kyle Ferguson, and it has just been a damn awesome end of the year for us. We've been wanting to put more time into YouTube, Kyle, and the response to starting to do Final Fantasy XIV videos has just been amazing. So we thought we would have a little chat today about how the hell we got here.
Yeah, a little cap to the year, a little 10,000 sub celebration. Thank you, everybody who sub if you haven't. This has been quite the journey. In fact, the journey is an emotional one chronicled in old news videos as well that weren't labeled Final Fantasy.
In terms of like how we got into this game, what was it like, man? How much of an absolute pain in the ass was it to break me down?
I've done this before with things like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon in the past. You don't force it on the person. You just leave on Star Wars enough that they eventually go, all right, what's this movie about? Like you just kind of bring it up enough. You keep playing the card game in front of them, and eventually they're like, John, fine, just get me a deck, I'm bored. And they will join. That's my strategy.
I feel like, I don't know if you meant to be as insidious as you were, but the fact that we had originally dusted this channel back off to start covering gaming news stories, and you're like, well, it's basically a news story. Just put on your analytical hat and just dive in and look at it from a curious perspective of, well, why do people like this game so much? Don't make it about yourself. Make it about trying to understand why others like this game. And you sneaky bastard, it worked.
I certainly respond to visionaries, whether those are your Walt Disneys, your Chris Metzens, your Ben Broads, like someone getting up on stage and being impassioned by the product really moves me to actually invest in it. And that is basically what I forced you to do with the Yoshi P interviews. I just sit down, watch them, and you're like, oh, it's an hour. It's an hour and a half. I can't do it. Just do it.
I was watching one of them and I'm like, all right, I'll give it like 10 minutes just to get a vibe. And I ended up watching almost the entire damn thing. It was legitimately interesting. The man has a really interesting personality. And since then, too, you mentioned the No Clip documentary. I just finished watching that.
Oh,
and
cool.
Dear God, dude, I felt like I kind of understood where Realm Reborn was starting off, like at the death of OG Final Fantasy XIV, but I didn't realize like it was that direct.
Yeah.
Like I feel informed of the mythos now around this MMO success. So getting back to our kind of where we were personally coming to it from. I mean, you'd been playing it for what, almost 2 years already, right? Like very, very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, free trial allowed me to come and go as I will. I was playing pretty intense there in mid 2019, but when my son was born, I took time off MMOs because it's very grindy and kids are naturally a lot of hours. I was watching in 2021 here, Demon Slayer. I was thinking to myself, man, it'd be really fun to play like an anime video game. And I went out and I looked at a whole bunch of different ones. And eventually, after playing through Dragon Age, my buddy John was like, listen, if you want more RPG, go play Final Fantasy. So I fired it up. I walked around. I didn't remember my bar. So I was like level 22. I was right before the 1,000 Maws dungeon. And I was completely overwhelmed. So I went into the local inn and it started storming and the lightning was flashing. I was like, this is some nice weather. It's actually got some darkness to it. I like that weather. And then someone came in a bard into this inn with nobody in it and started playing Sailor Moon. And it was such a magical moment. Like this bard practicing their layout of Sailor Moon, probably for the main city. I'm the only one sitting there. And I'm like, slash clap. And they're like, slash bow. And it just kind of stuck with me.
And I had heard those stories. I very recently, right before the Endwalker patch, had my first experience with like a bard playing songs that I knew. I was walking by the Crystal and Limsa, and I'm hearing All the Small Things play.
Nice.
I'm glad you kept poking, because I've ended up with a game that I really, really enjoy. And it came at a good time, and I'm surprised it took as much work from you as it did, considering how burnt out on World of Warcraft I was.
Well, and that's the thing, the burnout on WoW contributed to so many factors along with the scandals at Blizzard. It was just easier to give up on MMOs, but a lot like Dragon Age is a tactics game or Mass Effect is a tiny walls hide behind game. The gameplay is but a vessel for the story in those cases. You might not love tiny walls combat. You might not love Gears of War. You might not love The Division. But you put up with it for Mass Effect because it's part of that story. To me now, tab targeting doesn't feel like a old and moldy system. It's merely the vessel that Final Fantasy is using to tell its story.
Tab targeting is not an inherent turnoff for me, and I was flirting with other MMOs. So I spent some time with Elder Scrolls Online, which I really enjoy. There's a relaxation aspect of MMOs that is a big part of the appeal for me. And it's not to say that I think Elder Scrolls is difficult. It's just that the action orientation of its combat means I need to be more aware of what's going on. I've come back around to realizing that MMOs fulfill a very specific desire in my life to have a relaxing game experience. And part of that comes from tab targeting. But it also took me time to come to terms with the fact that I was burnt out on World of Warcraft, really bad. Probably the worst since Warlords, which was up until now the last time I unsubbed. I know a lot of people are like Battle for Azeroth. That was a big. I actually really had a good time with BFA for the most part. Do not disagree with people who didn't love BFA, but I think I had some extraneous social circumstances that made it a much better experience for me. I was really excited for Shadowlands. Theming of like going to a death realm was really exciting for me. And I think that combined with the fact that, you know, I was on the Instance podcast, I was doing WoW Killer with Taliesin. I think that carried me through a little bit longer than I would have if naturally left to my own devices. If I was just playing the game and I wasn't making content about it, I think I would have realized just how much I didn't care anymore a lot sooner. I think it's the same thing with me starting to like Final Fantasy XIV. Like, I stopped worrying so much about what I wanted the game to be and started just looking at it for what it was. And with World of Warcraft, I was like, you know what? I don't think where it is right now is for me. On the other side of that coin, kind of just taking Final Fantasy XIV at face value made me go, oh, you know what? If I kind of set aside a lot of my expectations, like I was weirdly hung up on like loading, for example, like how much you loaded between zones.
Yeah.
Really in Final Fantasy XIV, but like after like a good like solid, like it was a weekend and I sat there with a soda like I was in college again and I did like a 5-hour session. I didn't even think about it anymore.
And I'm not bashing the gameplay by any means, but again, to me, it's this vessel. Pixel games have really taught me this. A pixel game can be extremely epic. Darkest Dungeon's art style is like weird and chibi and kind of odd, particularly Darkest Dungeon 1, but it's a vessel for a disturbing Lovecraftian story, and that stuff begins to matter a lot, and you put emotions into those characters, much like you place your own emotions on top of our stoic, non-speaking Final Fantasy character.
Dude, that's such a great, I think, jumping off point to get into buying into Final Fantasy's world, the world of A Realm Reborn and everything that follows. Very quickly into me revisiting Final Fantasy XIV, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I like this gameplay loop. The combat's fun. It's familiar. It's bringing that relaxation that I was looking for in an MMO to kind of take the place of World of Warcraft. But what I was not expecting was to actually buy into the story. And I have been told millions of times, it actually has a good story. It has good lore. It has memorable characters. And I was like, yes, that's all fine. But I'm not a Final Fantasy player. I've played 10, and that's kind of it. Like, this is whatever. They're not for me. But I do. I am sitting here now after having played the game regularly for almost 2 months. I care. I want to see where the story goes next.
It just keeps making promises. We keep meeting more and more characters, and we don't even know if they're important yet.
I think more importantly, like, it keeps delivering on those promises.
Right.
Like, I was really impressed with like what a bow was tied on, you know, at least the original credits of A Realm Reborn. Like all of the, you know, the villains that we meet along the way that are constantly showing up and taunting you from the shadows. Like you face off with each and every one of them. And even like, you know, it didn't matter how fast I was ferried through the Praetorium, I still felt really satisfied at the end of it in terms of like the closing of a chapter. I was expecting to like the game and think the story was just a nice little addition. But now I've like more and more, I find myself wanting to log in to see what happens next. And that's like, for me, probably my biggest surprise.
This game could be single player, but happens to allow you to hang out and watch a whole concert of Final Fantasy VI music if you want, being performed by the Dancing Pope. It's just, it is the open world experience that I personally was missing.
That is, I think, like that is the perfect storm that makes it, I think, the success that it has become. Is if you kind of divide it into two very, very basic chunks, which is like what is there from the developers and what is created by the community in game. Like those two things they're both really good, as it turns out. Like there's a really good story. There's really good, gameplay mechanics and systems and content to enjoy. And then the community itself is just vibrant as can be. And that's another one of those things, like people told me time and time again, this is kind of my through line in today's episode, is like, I was told, I didn't listen. It turned out to be more true than I thought. It really is just one of the most vibrant in-game communities I have ever seen, certainly since Burning Crusade era World of Warcraft. It's always nice when hype lives up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the hype for me has certainly lived up. But But we have been told in the comments that usually it's one or the other. You either burn out in A Realm Reborn or you become a walking advertisement for the game.
It does kind of sound like that. I feel like we just need to be critical for critical's sake, so we're not gushing or anything like that. But it is nice here heading towards the holidays to have such a hobby at hand.
Yeah, I like to try and look at all angles, but like at the end of the day, the TLDR and all of this is like, yes, Final Fantasy XIV is indeed a special game.
Well, and I'm feeling very strong about it because I remember getting into Warlords of Draenor and them doing basically the Borderlands ripoff, if you want to call it. The boss would show up, they'd sort of slow-mo pause, they put the name on. I'm like, I can't wait to fight that guy. And I never did because I didn't raid. But I just went through the Crystal Tower. I just finished A Realm Reborn. Like, the game doesn't subvert your expectations. It's not going to do anything that's going to be particularly mind-blowing. You might even be able to slam dunk predict everything, which I'm very proud of. But it's really well done. And that reward that you paid attention and you get what you wanted out of it, but also it's really well done, is this perfect storm of enjoyment for me.
My expectations have been surpassed. And it's like I'm bought into my character, which again is like I usually get pretty bought into my characters in MMOs, but I'm really, really attached to my Final Fantasy XIV character that I gave a really dumb name. And I'm not feeling bad about it. And now it's kind of charming and I laugh every time I log in.
Yeah.
Really attached to my my emo turquoise hair and my beautiful, beautiful face.
It's funny. I am one who constantly questions my character design until probably halfway through a BioWare game. But they gave me, when I completed, the base of Realm Reborn, that bottle that would let me completely change my appearance. And I can't do it. This is just who I am.
Oh, I didn't realize I had one of those sitting around.
Yeah, you got one in your inventory. If you would like to be a Catman, you can now do that, or anything if you sort of own all the expansions.
To talk about looking forward, it's really just that I am looking forward. I haven't been in love with the political arc of the Realm Reborn patches. Like every time I see people sitting around a table, I'm just like, here we go again. Give me another primal to fight, which apparently I'm about to go fight another primal. I'm back out in the Snowy Dragon area. Okay. And there's some nice creepy setup. I saw there was a weird zero setup cinematic where they showed a scary Pope guy.
Oh yeah. That doesn't make a lot of sense yet.
No, it doesn't. Although I think I did just literally see a line of text where they're explaining that there's a bishop character, and I'm like, oh, there it is. There's that's probably who they're talking about. Like it's another one of these like surprises, like where I'm suddenly really into like I can say primals and I know what it means. I've learned new vernacular. And also I'm excited to see more primals because so far none of them have disappointed. But a little bit ago I did the striking tree.
Omega Beard? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wanted to call him like ballsack beard because that's kind of what it looked like. But
it has an odd undulation.
What a fantastic character model. Like he's just so over the top and wondrous. As much as I wanted the goof on the beard, I also loved it. Like absolutely loved the style of that character and that whole arc. Getting in there was just delightfully dramatic. So more primals, please. More any summons. I think a couple episodes ago too, you said, oh, you enjoy King Moogle because the song is amazing, and you were not wrong.
Yes. Okay, excellent. I mean, you're a Tim Burton fan, so it's basically just a Nightmare Before Christmas song.
It hadn't crossed my mind, but yeah, you are once again correct, Kyle.
Absolutely outrageous, and what a fart off, an absolute fart off after the end of A Realm Reborn primary. Like you're just what? Where are we going? What am I doing here?
Listen, I will take that over the political intrigue mini arc for sure. Also, I was so excited to leave the Waking Sands. I'm like, yes, no more double loading. They just put you in a new double loading place.
Yeah, they do.
The area I think is cooler. I like that it's kind of a little like spookier and more desolate.
Right, it's classic castle. Yeah, a bit.
And I like that I have to go through a bar to get to the new hideout. Like that's infinitely cooler to me. But I'm still like, could we just put Minfilia in the same goddamn room as everybody else, please?
I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's a product of the time. You can't summon pets in there either, so maybe it's just like got restrictions.
I'm sure there's got to be some sort of technical thing. I mean, almost every time you go in there's like a cinematic, and I wonder if it's just easier. I have no idea. That's probably my biggest pet peeve, and that again couldn't be higher praise. The fact that like just going to Minfilia's office is the thing that has consistently annoyed me in A Realm Reborn. I'll get past it. I won't get past it because I'll keep mentioning it, but I'm going to keep playing this game.
Fair enough. I'm really looking forward to unlocking some of the classes that I haven't been able to get yet. I really want to try Astrologian. That is like it's been memed as the Yu-Gi-Oh healer.
Oh boy!
And
you want to sell Kyle on anything? Just say Yu-Gi-Oh.
The idea of a card drawing class and having that be some sort of random element, I really don't know what the gameplay's like, but you can dig up a tweet where I said, if I play Final Fantasy seriously, I will play Astrology. And that was like in June, before I actually got heavily back into this. I've read a lot about them. I have no idea how it plays. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I went and unlocked the Red Mage this past weekend, and it was just like, here the bar. The whole 50 bar, just one pile, bonus buttons and all.
Yeah, Red Mage was the second class I went to go pick up because a lot of folks recommended it in the comments, and it does sound cool. And as soon as it gave me my bar, I was like, I'm going to go right back to Summoner. This is scary.
It is. And the guy you're chilling with is like, hey, just balance the magics, bro. Also fight with me. I have no idea how to balance these magics. I don't know what buttons spend what. The tool tips are equally as confusing. I got to go find a guide if I really want to invest in that. But
yeah, that's been because then I also went and got Samurai, which I'm significantly more interested in, and I think was a lot more approachable out the gate. But I did spend a little more time reading up about it. But I need to find a good resource that has not max level guides. It seems like it's really easy to find like level 80 guides and above. Are we above level 80? I don't even know what the new cap is.
I think we're 90. Yeah.
Are we 90? Okay. I haven't looked into it. I've really been taking heed from commenters that are just like, don't worry about looking too far ahead. Just enjoy where you're at and take it slow. And so I'm like, what's happening in Heaven or in Endwalker? I have no idea. And it's really liberating. That's another thing I've really been digging about the game. But yeah, Samurai is cool. I really like the intro quest to that. I think I'll probably go back and dabble with it, but I do have this pull to the story, even though, again, I'm still in the middle of Realm Reborn patches and it's not my favorite. But I think, if you listen to the last few episodes, I talked about how I was kind of still feeling this pull to like, I want to get into higher stuff. I'm still feeling pulled to want to level through the stories, but it's no longer because I feel this great need to get to what I quote unquote end game. Like I'm still thinking about it like World of Warcraft. Now I just feel this full because I just really want to see the story continue. So I still just kind of want to play through the story and not spend too much time flirting around with other jobs. But Black Knight is, I think, become the number one thing at the top of my list that I want to go try when I get to the point. I don't believe I can start it yet. But yeah, I want to play Black Knight. That's at the tip top of my want to play list.
Yeah, I'm really interested in all the other tanks, Black Knight included. I'd love to find a DPS. I, of course, just want to do Reaper, but there's going to be like a million of them for a very long time. And I like being special. So even if I was high enough to take part in that class, I don't think I would quite yet. Man, there's some cool abilities in there. Oh, like you summon a shadow that attacks for you, and then you can like be enveloped in the shadow and become one with it. You got a big old scythe. Just cool.
It is, and yeah, that's like the now I like the look of Final Fantasy XIV. Like I think because I've become invested in this world, I am now invested in like the style and the look of it. And something I used to like back growing up, my friends who were playing Final Fantasy games, I always joke. We're just like, oh yeah, your belts and your buckles game, enjoy.
Oh yeah, Titus's pants made no sense, and the monsters had too many horns, and they were all curly.
Titus's pants make no sense. Auron is really cool looking, and Lulu is too hot. That's all you need to know about Final Fantasy X.
Lulu was the yellow bikini one?
No, Lulu was the goth.
Oh, right, with the shoulders. With the shoulders, yeah, okay. There's a very powerful thing that I refer to in Dungeons and Dragons as mental graphics. It is there is investment involved. It is more powerful to show a D&D player a picture of a lion, a dragon, and a snake and say there's a chimera than show them a picture of a chimera. Like when your brain puts it together and you overlay the importance onto it, it looks way better than it did before. And we were doing that with World of Warcraft. We had investment. The graphics looked better in our minds because we were moving through them. Personally, I think every MMO looks bad on a stream. I think
if you're completely unfamiliar with it, I don't think really MMO sells well just by looking at it. It's something I think you really have to experience yourself. But yeah, man, this has just been a fun ride. This has been a really, really fun ride. Like for folks that if this is your first time being introduced to Kyle and myself, we've been doing video game podcasting for 11 years. This is our 11th year working together, making content, but we have typically made audio content, doing podcasts. We used to talk about StarCraft. We still have a podcast where we talk about Heroes of the Storm. This has been an experience unlike anything else, and I'm really excited to continue it and get into it in the new year. And my goal is we're going to be taking next week off, enjoying the holidays. Over the holiday break, I want to wrap up A Realm Reborn and have a chat about that probably as our next video. This is not set in stone, but this is where my head's at. But I'm just really excited to see where it goes because the reaction to us starting to make Final Fantasy 14 videos, it really has just been great. Like the meanest thing anyone says that you just keep yelling copium at me whenever I say anything positive about World of Warcraft. Copium. We've got copium here. And that's fine. Like, other than that, like, it's just been like, I haven't had experience like this in a really, I think, ever. I've been told the Final Fantasy 14 community is very kind. And again, the theme of this video, I was told I didn't listen and my expectations were exceeded. That's definitely what happened with the community as well. People seem to dig this. Like some of our best performing videos are where we just sit here and kind of talk about our experience with the game. And it's typically that sort of stuff doesn't perform well in my experience making content. So I think it's really cool because it's like one of my favorite things in this world is to sit down with you, dude, because we've been friends a long time and just pick your brain about what you're enjoying in games and getting to experience this alongside you through Final Fantasy 14 make these videos. It's just been a really rewarding experience. I just want to fight with you about dungeons as we move it around a fake wall that we made in Photoshop.
Absolutely. It's been great having something of this level to share, not only with you, but with the community and be a part of something again in gaming. It feels like it's been a really long time.
In an MMO space for sure. I've had my friends and I had my communities in World of Warcraft, but this feels like fresh and new, and I don't know, like I'm in the middle of a community that's just so much larger than I can really fathom, which is a feeling I haven't had in other MMOs in quite a while. So it's been really cool. And so to our new subscribers, people who are experiencing us for the first time and kind of just the Final Fantasy 14 community, like, thanks for hanging and thanks for, like, at least from me, because you had more knowledge coming into this, Kyle, but I've been guided a lot by the comments. So thank you very much for like getting in there and being like, oh, you should try this, or this is how you can make your gameplay a little bit better. And thank you very much to everyone who went out of your way to be like, don't feel like you need to rush. Just calm down and enjoy the ride. I would never categorize myself as a calm person. I am enjoying the ride. So anyways, it's going to wrap it up for this one. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Get one over on the algorithm. You're going to get the latest uploads from us. You won't miss them if you get those notifications. And we have new uploads every Wednesday morning. The big exception being we're taking next week off before the holidays. I hope everyone has a great break. To get in touch with us personally, my Twitter is Garrett Art and Kyle's is Kyle Ferguson. So until next time, good luck, have fun, and Happy New Year.
Take care.
Oh yeah, our first raid, Coils of Bahamut. This one is super unique because if you're familiar with the channel, and I'll explain it, if you're not, now we go into trials and raids with a full group. We don't research the content ahead of time, so we're going in blind, and we do it on min-eye level. We love this stuff. We love trials, we love raids, we love seeing that content and actually having it be somewhat of a challenge. We don't just want to steamroll it, but we did steamroll Coils because we didn't really know what we were doing yet. We didn't know what we wanted to do yet. But shout out to our good friend John Jagger. You might know him as the MS Curator, the gentleman who helps us, gives us hints on when he thinks we should probably stop so we don't stream for like 11 hours when we're doing an MSQ stream. Really helps us out. And he's got a wonderful gaming podcast called The Core, or The Core Gaming Podcast, as they're known. So shout out to him. Enjoy our walk through Coils of Bahamut. So we're just gonna, spoiler alert, all of Coils of Bahamut.
Yeah.
For this whole friggin' thing, right?
For 2015 spoiler warning.
You have been warned for content that's been playable for 6 years. There's a lot of grandpa.
Grandfather. Grandpa!
Kids!
Greetings and welcome back, and Happy New Year, everybody. This is Grinding Gear. I'm Garrett, here as always with Kyle. And Kyle, we made a promise at the end of our last video.
We did.
We were like, hey, we're taking a week off. It's the end of the year. We will be back at the start of the new year, and we're going to talk about the ending of A Realm Reborn, of its patch content. Going to tie a bow on it before you and I both step into Heaven's Ward. We lied unintentionally.
No, people said no. You gotta do Coils of Bahamut.
We listened, okay? For once we listened. If my journey through this has been, I didn't listen, I should have listened, and everyone was more right than I could have imagined, this is my first instance of, all right, fine, I'm going to listen. And that's what happened. And really what it boils down to, Kyle, is we like unintentionally lied, because behind the scenes, we've been trying to figure out a way to run Coils of Bahamut essentially since the very first time it started being suggested by people in the comments. But it's not so simple to just go and run Coils of Bahamut. I think that difficulty plays to why it's so suggested that you go do it, because it's not a part of the MSQ. And while it technically is a thing you can check in the duty finder, that doesn't mean you're gonna find a group.
Right. It is labeled as somewhere between extreme and savage. The difficulty is extremely high. So most people go in with a max level friend to run them through. However, it's a lot of wings. Coming from a more World of Warcraft sort of design philosophy, it's a lot of content, and it's a pretty big ask. So big thank you to our friend John Jagger for being willing to reaper us through the entirety of Coils in one big sitting.
Yeah. So we if anyone out there is wondering, well, how did you do it? Well, we absolutely took the easier route, which was getting our max level buddy to run us through in an unsynced run. So this will not be a reaction to if the fights are good or not.
We were on the floor for the whole thing. There was a lot of pushing into walls that instantly killed.
So there was a lot of hype to Coils going into this, and I appreciated a lot of folks that said, hey, yeah, you can run this whenever you want, and certainly we've been receiving a lot of non-Coils specific advice to take your time with Final Fantasy, run it at your own speed, and really kind of take it in and pay attention. But a lot of you went out of your way to say that is true, but you'll probably enjoy and get a little more out of Coils of Bahamut if you run it before you take your first step into Heaven's Ward. Because like you said, man, this is a lot. And even running it unsynced, this took like over 3 hours.
It's a fascinating history project. And much like watching the No-Clip documentary or really doing any research about the game, Coils of Bahamut, in its own timeline, makes you appreciate what the developers were doing more. This was a cap to A Realm Reborn that I've never seen in an MMO. The willingness to complete a story of this size in your main game. I mean, maybe your first expansion if you want to think about it like that, but your original go, and they're just going to be like, hey, you know all those crystals you've seen everywhere? You know all those doors you've witnessed? Let's do them all. The whole thing right now. Nothing save for an expansion later, just all of it today. Well, over the course of months, but in the first expansion, in the first original game.
Yeah, the big bad from that super awesome freaking cinematic. Let's just not only open that chapter for the first time with this raid, but also close it. There's just so much of a meta communal experience to Coils of Bahamut, because at least for me, that's been my experience going through as a new player of FF14. It's something I absolutely would have missed if it wasn't for people saying I should go do it. So with it being this kind of like meta communal thing, if you're coming into Final Fantasy 14 now, and Lord knows there's enough of us that where that is the case, although at the time of recording this you can't buy Final Fantasy 14. But there's a reason for that, and that's so many people like us have shown up out of the blue to start playing now here in 2022. I almost want to go through this like how I would recommend it, because I would say, Kyle, as glad as I am that I ran this and as good of a time as I had with it, I don't feel I was sufficiently warned
about the size of this undertaking.
Well, first, just the time investment. I was like, all right, we're going to start this early evening. I'll be fine. I'll have a late dinner. I had a very late dinner, an exceptionally late dinner. But the other thing is that, I feel there was a lot of warning with getting into FF14, people being like, all right, Realm Reborn, there's some cool stuff, but it's a little slow. Just stick with it. It gets better. I feel I personally didn't really need that. I enjoyed a Realm Reborn. The 2.0 forward, the patch content of a Realm Reborn, I feel got a little boring for me, but I feel I needed that warning for Coils of Bahamut, because this starts slow.
It has to be understood as a patch cycle content release, because when you complete a Realm Reborn and you have just fought the Ultima weapon, which is very much tied into this storyline, which again, I am having lore whiplash today at just the willingness of the Final Fantasy creators and writers to be like, let's do that now. And yeah, they like to hint at it, but if you're paying attention, you are rewarded for paying attention. And the pieces come together and they give you all the pieces you need for the beautiful puzzle. So A Realm Reborn releases in August 27th of 2013. In it, you fight the Ultima weapon and then have your little party there in the sun. And a roar goes out. And that was actually the roar of Bahamut. I thought it was the roar of the upcoming dragon-based expansion. But that's Bahamut. And immediately, in that time of 2013, you could go and do the Binding Coils of Bahamut, the first 5 turns of this initial raid business.
Through most of AAR's patch content, I was wondering, like, what the hell what was getting set up in that credit sequence? Like, what was the roar? Because it didn't see, like, early on in the patch content, there doesn't seem like there's a direct lead in. It's like, well, it wasn't Good King Moogle. What the hell was it? And so much later on in the Realm Reborn patch content, you start dealing with the dragons. You're back in the snowy area. I can't remember the name of it. I just call it the Snowy Dragon area. And I'm like, oh, okay, it was probably, I was with you. I think it was alluding to this. And then we ran Coils of Bahamut, and we were both doing some reading, and our buddy John was like, oh yeah, that roar, that was Bahamut. I'm like, wait, what? You mean to tell me that like the whole setup in that credit sequence was for a raid that you don't have to do?
Yes.
Kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Yes, and as we're in spoiler territory, I guess it doesn't matter because you're never going to mention it anyway, because it's got to be super secret that we even did this. So I guess it's okay.
The realm need not know the truth for it to be saved.
That, I think, is really clever. Because, you don't really learn that until basically the end of the whole Coils of Bahamut, is that Valisay Alphino eventually shows up and makes things a little less fun. Listen, I didn't get the Alphino hate. After Coils of Bahamut, I get the Alphino hate. I'm very done with him. But apparently I'm going to be hanging out with him a lot more. Anyway, they decide that they don't need to tell the world. And that comes up, and you and I were running it together. We haven't done a lot together in this game, by the way, either. So I also, that was another like little feather in Coil of Bahamut's cap, was it was fun kind of getting this experience this alongside you. But you even audibly like said as we were running, like, oh, that's clever. It's a secret raid. They're not going to tell the world. And yeah, I don't know. I think you could look at it like as a positive or a negative, but I think it's clever as hell, because the whole way through this, I'm like, man, this is some like mind-blowing revelations in terms of lore and the impact on the world. But the fact that the heroes that decided to go and do this and defeat Bahamut and really like essentially close the chapter on everything that was kind of a part of original Final Fantasy XIV, which, by the way, if you're going to go run Coils of Bahamut, watch the no-clip documentary, because I think they pair well, like so damn well. The fact that this kind of closes the book on all of that, I don't know. There's a lot here, and it is really fascinating, and it fills in so many gaps in the lore, while at the same time, you don't really have to do it.
Well, and mechanically, for the sake of the game, it works well. But the lore also ties into it. It's not like they're like, oh, it's a secret, everybody. Don't tell it because, you know, we had a lot of fun in here. They actually can't tell anybody because Grandpa became Phoenix. And if you summon Phoenix, it's going to be bad. And you can't have people relying on summoning Grandpa all the time. This lore is, of course, really intertwined, and I'm really excited because I've heard that much like a Oblivion game or a BioWare game, us doing Coils will now inform some of our text in the future. The game will be aware that we did that together, and it may not be our first meeting with some characters when we meet them again, which is
Alice
pretty cool.
will remember that.
Yeah, very much so. And that's awesome.
That's what I've been, I hear it's subtle. I hear it's like, you know, a line of dialogue may change here or there. But that's good to know. I think I was more excited about the kind of story revelations about, Grandpa Louis becoming a primal. Because as I mentioned, I think on our last video, like I'm weirdly into the primals. I like the lore that's going on there. I like that there's so many of them, and they're these like demi deities for the different beast tribes. But then there's also like these. Now, multiple times in Realm Reborn patch content, they're like, oh, well, they're not a primal, but boy, are they behaving like a primal. Boy, I guess people started praying to these things, and now they're causing trouble. And so to have that revelation, and also to have a proper cinematic, like an extra proper cinematic.
Yeah.
That for a hot second you're like, oh, they're just gonna reuse the intro cinematic. No, wait, nope, never mind. It's entirely new footage, and Louis is just gonna go full on Super Saiyan and kill a god.
It's so interesting how layered it is too when you think about a Realm Reborn coming from the failed project of 1.0. That Louis summons forth the 12 gods in order to bind Bahamut, but he's so pissed off that it doesn't take. And so he has to pull together the prayers of everybody playing the game in order to defeat Bahamut. As though, you know, the devs and the producers weren't enough. It took the player base to fund Louis yeeting through the middle of a dragon.
It was anime as hell. Like the cinematic is so very cool.
It is. It's done in this structured, slow release way, partially because of those patches. So, for instance, in the Binding Coils of Bahamut, our first set of turns, that's where you end up on the big dragon hand. And you discover that there is a dragon with a lock mechanism, some sort of control collar around their neck. From there, you sort of go off on your exploratory chain quest adventures, but it's time to rest and pray return. So you don't actually go back there. This is August 27th, 2013, a Realm Reborn release. Through the Maelstrom is in March of the next year, 2014. And that's where they add like gardening, glamours, zodiac weapons, and the second coil of Bahamut.
Yeah, it's interesting to know the history to a certain degree, to kind of understand kind of how they're batched and how they were added to the game. But at the same time too, it's like now it's what you can just go through it all at once. Although like now that I've done it, it's like, man, it would be cool. Like I think the perfect way would be to kind of break it up, take it in one piece at a time, because it is a lot to see. The individual coils themselves, especially the earlier ones, like there's not a cinematic after each and every one. So you're just kind of seeing the boss fights. And if you are doing an unsynced run like we were, they're very short. They're there's not much to write home about.
They're chaotic. They make little sense. You're jumping on random hexagons. You're jumping between platforms. You're being shot through circles. It's very, very confusing without those moments of battle to sort of get your bearings.
Yeah. That being said, I really liked how everything looked. It's so futuristic and like kind of visual technobabble, but it's so damn different from really everything else you're questing through, all the other zones and kind of like aesthetics you're seeing as you're playing through A Realm Reborn. So to end up in this, like, it kept reminding me of like Destiny, and also you kept mentioning hexagons. I've been playing through Halo Infinite, which is just lousy with hexagons. So it was reminding me of more futuristic, sci-fi games than really kind of the anime classic fantasy look of A Realm Reborn.
And then you have the technology next to the wounds of the world that are these giant crystals, growing out of the ground. And of course, the Bahamut influence on those crystals and everything. It makes a very rich visual experience as well as a rich lore experience. In particular, when the big door opened and you were staring at his head on a wall, I was just mad impressed by how much art was made for this vista.
That's like my big takeaway. Like the end of the first coil kind of tees up everything. And then the second coil, you're just kind of like, come on, I want to see what happens next. And it's like, no, pray return to the waking sands and talk to Urianger and all of that stuff, which is fine. But I was, as someone who might have been hungry while I was running this, I was a little impatient. But, the big lore bombs, they all drop in the final coil. But up until that, I was still mad impressed by, like you said, just the sheer volume of art. And by art, I mean like unique assets. Like every single coil looks really unique, even if it has a somewhat similar visual style. Like the layouts and the way they've kind of constructed the zone of each individual, raid partition, because each coil is broken into multiple parts. They just look so damn unique from one another. And like you said, after the first coil, I was like, okay, I'm in. Like what that whole cinematic, the animation of everything and coming to life and opening up and revealing and rolling back as it reveals the dismembered, regenerating head of Bahamut. That just as a I would call myself a mild Godzilla fan, just looking like this ridiculous, out of this world kaiju. What happens next? I started as excited to find out what the hell was going to happen to Bahamut, but as you start uncovering like the layers of what happened with Louisoix, a character I knew was important because he shows up once in that really cool cinematic that kicks off A Realm Reborn. But other than that, I didn't care. I didn't really know who Louisoix was. I understood he was important. He made a big sacrifice. That was kind of all I knew. But they add this extra layer of like, well, what the hell happened to him when Bahamut came crashing down? And there's that whole sub-story about him essentially becoming a primal, and then that becoming the whole damn reason you can't even talk about what transpired here so that people don't start praying to Louisoix and summon another primal. It's great. I care about the lore. I don't know why I'm surprised, because I already started caring about it, but I ended up really enjoying where the lore led and landed. Like, damn, does this stick the landing.
And there's an important distinction to make between lore and story. So often lore is a paragraph attached to an item to give it flavor. But this flavor was mixed into a dish, and it was delicious. For instance, the speed at which they can introduce a character. Nail Dias Darnus, who gives us a big bow when we walk in the door. Big part of 1.0 sort of business. Accidentally, apparently, found a telephone that called the evil moon, and they became corrupted and mind-controlled by it. Big whoops. Ended up bringing it back to destroy the planet because, the dragon was so pissed off, they used them as a vessel of destruction. Those sort of reveals lead you up to the discovery of what happened to Grandpa. And in that second coil, we actually end by fighting the channeled rage of Bahamut as embodied by this old Garlean soldier of sorts. I'm still just mad impressed that this story was completed inside of A Realm Reborn. It is such a big, even what you would put on the Lich King kind of levels out there. story, something for the third expansion even. And the idea that they went around and wrapped up what happened to this planet for you that quickly just shows how well things were planned out and how much story they have to tell. It's hauling. We're hauling through a lot of business here. It is so metal that an ancient empire who was at war with the dragons was really, really good at fighting primals. So they got their Ragnaros class ships, space cruisers, and used them to create a infinitely regenerating prison around him. But they realized, of course, that Bahamut, if they were to die, would be summonable again, back on the planet and be a problem. So they made him immortal by capturing the worshippers and putting them inside pylon jars so they could worship forever the version that was already summoned, and should it ever fail or be destroyed, they can regenerate it again. And it all works inside that small bit of whoops you got mind control lore that we learned with our first Ifrit fight and was built upon slowly. And the Ultima weapon being a repurposed or regenerated Allagan machine means that even Gaius and his great works were a part of this storyline as well.
They use every part of the story buffalo.
Yes, the whole buffalo.
And I don't mean that as a joke. Like I am impressed. Like if anything, my biggest negative from this is it's good enough that I want it to be part of the MSQ. And Lord knows there have been times where I'm like, I feel like the MSQ could have been cleaned up a little bit. I feel like it could have been toned down or shortened. There's a few places where I think you could probably take things out, and for the sake of brevity. But this is like the first time where I've gone, yeah, I think the MSQ could be a little longer. Like I think I get it. There's so many parts to this, and the way the raid was released, there's so many wings.
Surely things can be thrown out. Just take the second Coil of Bahamut Turn 3, the one with the bulkhead and all the various dungeon wings and the big tree repurposes the Archon, and just put that in the trash and just throw it away. No one needs to see that again. We don't need to jump through hoops. We don't need to run over crystal bridges. Like there are story elements here, particularly in those final turns of each coil section, that would be really great to purpose into something like we ran in Crystal Tower. However, maybe these are just too experimental. Maybe there's some shame even that this is how this looks nowadays and they don't want it to be a part of the main story quest. I don't know exactly why it's not. It feels like essential lore to understand what you're seeing when you travel the world.
Yeah, I don't know. But like literally as I'm sitting here though, my mind is changing. Maybe there is an argument for a coil. A part of the draw to this for me is it is cool that it is this secret. I mean, it ends with keep this secret. This is the secret raid. We can't talk about what transpired here. And that I think adds to it. Again, there's like this meta sense of it is it's a little bit of a secret within the game itself because it isn't a part of the MSQ. I don't know if it would land the same if you were just ferried off to it. You were pointed directly at it. Like the next step in the MSQ is go do the Coils of Bahamut, and they've truncated it down to only 3 raids. And here's your lore, and here it is. There is something to be said, I guess, that I think there's another layer that makes it special, that the players themselves of this game, the community of Final Fantasy, need to tell you, hey, this is pretty cool. I think you'd like it. You should go check it out.
I would love to see this inserted in its timeline into the MSQ. Take the first coil and place it right after Gaius. Take the second one and put it right after, well, it doesn't really look anywhere too particular, but we do the first ancient Crystal Tower raid, the Labyrinth of the Ancients, before you do the second coil. So this is actually kind of divided up even. And the Crystal Tower is sort of trading places with the coils as you adventure.
Now that we've done it, would you recommend it? Are we going to continue on the tradition of telling people they should run Coils of Bahamut?
I'm having to debate with my elitist gamer personality because I like the secret. I like feeling special in an MMO, you know? I know stuff that somebody else doesn't now. I was there. And even if I floor tanked it, I was there. If it's not essential to the ongoing plot, like Crystal Tower was deemed to be, and Crystal Tower introduces a lot of characters that I've seen come back later on when just flipping through streams and I go, no. Not yet. This doesn't introduce anything that you have to know, but the richness it provides, I don't think you have to be a super fan to enjoy that, but it might make you a super fan of the lore by the end.
I will recommend it as well. As someone who, again, like, I have been kind of consistently surprised that I am getting bought into this world and the lore. Going in, I knew that the lore was a big draw. I didn't think it would. I don't think it completely blew my mind to the level that how much it's been recommended has kind of built it up to be. But it is damn good. And like I said earlier, like, it really uses every part of the story. And it's almost like, if I could do it again, I would just set aside more time, maybe break it up over 2 nights. Like, there is a lot to digest here. And like you said, I think you can get story whiplash. And I did this the night after the same day that I essentially completed A Realm Reborn. And so the absolute amount of lore just being fired in my brain, like, it was just like my head hurt last night, man. There was so much to kind of think of. And at the same time, I do think that this pairs well with the Crystal Tower. I think if you're thinking to yourself, all right, the history of when this was released patched wise, that's all well and good, but I can do it all in a sitting. Should I? And because that's the case, when should I do it? I think in general, yeah, before Heaven's Ward seems like a good place to do it. But as someone who was wrapping up the Crystal Tower around the same time as I went and ran Coils, maybe don't do them all in the same day, but within the same week, I think is a good strategy. I think there's enough crossover because I really didn't have a good grasp of who the Allagons were and who the Allagan Empire. Between Coils and Crystal Tower, there is a ton of Allagan lore. And
that's a good point. No, that pushes me towards required reading pretty hard, because the Crystal Tower being an energy source and possibly a weapon and clones and all that sort of thing didn't really convey just how Atlantean the Allagan Empire was. Like, just how Chimera, let's all play God for fun, let's capture all the dragons and make them worship forever in stasis, just how crazy gone they were with technology. While I was beating up Golden Man with a sword and going into the universe of darkness to save my best buddy Nero because he's great, I didn't really understand why this empire would go to this length, or what their power-hungry nature was before doing Bahamut.
I feel the same way. Because like the Emperor shows up in Crystal Tower and it's pretty, I think, abrupt. It's like, yo, he's here. Like, he looks cool. He's scary. You should fight him. You know, he looks cool and Crystal Tower is cool enough, but I don't feel I really understood the danger of the Allagan Empire until Coils. So those two together, boy, it just really fleshed this world out for me. So yeah, I would recommend, Kyle.
Yeah, we had some fun. Interesting.
Go figure. Go figure. So yeah, let us know your thoughts. Like, if I were to recommend this to a friend, I would say, listen, stick with it. There's a cool reveal at the end of the first coil. And then the middle's a bit of a slog, in my opinion. And then the end, ooh, does the end deliver? Like, this is where I would warn people. It's like, I don't think I would warn a friend going to A Realm Reborn. I'm like, it's fun. It's a little bit of an older MMO. Go enjoy. But if you're going to do Coils, I'm going to be like, all right, just stick with it. Because the ending is worth it.
Play the relax in an MMO environment. You've earned it. And then once they're invested in Defeat of Gaius, just start laying on start thinking in terms of lore, slow it down a little bit, and pace yourself.
Yeah. It turns out the game that everyone says has a really good story has a really good story.
Who knew?
Well, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We had a huge surge of subs again after the last video, so thank you all so much for deciding to sign up, come on board, and go on this Final Fantasy journey with us. We put up new uploads every Wednesday morning, and you can get in touch with us personally. We both have Twitters. I'm Garrett Art. Kyle is on there as @KyleFerguson. Or you can send an email to feedback@startgrindinggear.com. It's going to wrap it up for this one. So until next time, GG. Yep. All right, here it is. We made it to the end. Time for our video about actually finishing A Realm Reborn. This is probably the first time that Kyle and I kind of agreed on a critical opinion about Final Fantasy XIV. This is the first time that I think we both kind of felt that the game had some pacing problems at times with its narrative, but we also get into how maybe that slow burn helps make those big moments seem as big as they are. Enjoy our final Realm Reborn video.
Plainly, the royalists can no longer be relied upon to keep our nation safe.
Ah, great. This hole again.
And so it falls to the monitorists of the Syndicate to govern Uldar.
Probably a good time to get a snack.
But should you wish to help us, General, we would be more than happy to entrust the task of planning Her Grace's funeral to you.
You would mock her, then mock her from hell!
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God, it's beautiful.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is Grinding Gear. I'm Garrett, here as always with Kyle. And we did it, Kyle. We finally did it. We said we were going to talk about it last week, but it turned out Coils of Bahamut was a little thick. We had some thoughts, wanted to share our experience there. But we can finally now sit down and have a chat about the fact that both of us have actually finished A Realm Reborn. There's a video up on this channel. It says, I survived A Realm Reborn. No, now I have truly survived A Realm Reborn.
Yeah, there's a couple of patches and a lot of main story quests. Oh my goodness. Slog is such a mean word. There is a third of this that I did not care about, and that was everything building to the scandalous Game of Thrones ending. That ending I enjoyed, but all the weapon crate stuff and a chore.
I'm with you. I think this is the most we're probably going to agree in a while on most things. We both like the game, but we tend to like different aspects of it for different reasons. Yeah, it was so. I've been on such a journey, man. I've been on such a journey with this game. I find it so amusing. Because when we started this, when we dusted this channel off not that long ago, it was to just start doing gaming news. And throughout that, we covered things like the Yoshi P interviews leading into Endwalker. And if you can go back and watch that, and plus we did one on why Final Fantasy XIV is pulling players from World of Warcraft. If you watch those two, you will see me be the biggest grump in the world about this game. And everyone that knows me from the podcasting side of things, they've heard me say even more ridiculous things like, no, I'll never play that game. I'm not into anime aesthetic. Whatever the hell that is past, Garrett. So I've been on a journey, man. You finally broke me down, got me to try the game. That's so far has been the arc of this channel. And I think after today's episode, we're still going to make, comparisons to other games we've played. I'm always going to have World of Warcraft and the Old Republic living in the back of my head. But going forward, this is very much going to be about just me and you as players of Final Fantasy XIV. But I wanted to mention that because it plays so much into this, because my outside of game experience of being sold on Final Fantasy XIV, it was a lot of warnings about A Realm Reborn. I was warned like I am warned for a lot of good serialized television, which is, listen, you just got to get through season 1. Just stick with it. The amount of people that told me, listen, A Realm Reborn is a little rough around the edges, quote, just stick with it. I felt like I was being sold on like Breaking Bad or The Office or whatever you like binging nowadays.
For me, everyone was concerned about the grind to Titan. And I thought that was kind of cute. You know, it was making fun of MMOs. It was a little self-aware. It was this chunk following the Praetorium that was the most time intensive for me in terms of just playing the game.
I was warned so much. I felt like I was like, A Realm Reborn was really carefully teed up for me of like, hey, you know, there's some great parts. There's some kind of aged parts that don't hold up as much. Go in knowing you just kind of need to break through some of the pieces. And I kind of disagree with that and agree with it. I don't feel like I needed that warning at all for OG Realm Reborn. I did need that warning for the post-patch content in A Realm Reborn, because that's where my brain started wandering off, and I was like, I don't know, let me go see what cool armor. I'm going to spend the next 2 hours just messing with my glamours. And I got very distracted because I didn't get as pulled in to that story. I liked the weird, kind of quirky pre-Titan stuff.
It was MMO. And we played a lot of MMO, so therefore we could deal with MMO. Now, everyone says, of course, this is the trial. This is but the initial go of Final Fantasy XIV. Wait till you get to Heavensward. But this was perfectly acceptable. All this Titan business. It was the sand snakification Game of Thrones multi-story that really slowed me down here. But powered through.
I felt that. I was like, oh, Kyle's going to be annoyed by this. This feels a little Game of Thronesy, and I know how much you hate the Game of Thrones jump around.
Listen, I know MMOs are a ton of content, and MMOs, because of that, are heavily influenced by the pop culture of the time. We're talking 2015 here. Game of Thrones was rocking, and naturally, that's going to influence developers. I don't know the exact influence they had here, but certainly World of Warcraft sometimes is like feel like you're just reading the news from 2 years ago.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You know, in the defense, Game of Thrones was also still very good in 2015.
That is very true. That is very true. Keeper of the Lake. I thought that was awesome. The laser shoots through you. Everything seems to be getting really dramatic. The dragon business is building. I now no longer have a crystal support. I have a dragon support. I'm going to Dragonland. Like, this is really going somewhere. And then we just kind of slow down a little bit. And they introduced an entirely new character. And I'm really impressed by how fast I cared about them. And then they quickly took them away.
Are you talking about Moonbrita?
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. She showed up and she's very sassy and very happy to take dangerous steps forward. Whereas I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about a lot of the Scions. I think they're all a bunch of Boy Scouts. They're not the type of archetypes that I prefer. I do like Thancred because he is not a Boy Scout. He's a stabby, sexy man.
True. I was so disappointed by the Chrysalis, man. I have been really rooting for Midrifia. And
Midrifia, yes.
And everyone loves to trash on her. And I was like, no, she's responsible. She's the Rock. She's making sure this company actually works and gets things done.
She has grown on me. I'll say that too, because I've been one of those people dumping on Minfilia. I would like a little more conflict. She's still very straightforward, very Boy Scouty. I needed a little more Leonardo fighting with Raphael from Minfilia.
But she just goes and gets captured with like zero objection. Like she's got this like roguish personality.
Twice.
I know. No flips, no cutscene powers, just straight up captured. I was so disappointed in her.
Yeah, we get to see basically all of the Scions throw down at one point or another. We get to see why they are powerful, why they're in a place of power, how they can throw down and be cool. I've still yet to see Minfilia do anything interesting.
It was so disappointing. I've been cheering for her. Well, I hopefully in the future they give her a little bit of cutscene power a la Mass Effect, because she needs it. She needs it now. I've been strung on. I mean, if you're ready to dive into it, let's talk about the end here.
Yeah. Let's absolutely do that. Because as someone who shared your feelings of not really loving the kind of political intrigue arc, boy, is the payoff great.
Yeah, but Princess is so dead from the beginning. Like, she will not shut up about how dead she's about to be.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been trying to figure out what you've been alluding to because you would not shut up on Twitter about how you called the end of A Realm Reborn, how you saw exactly where all of this was going. Hashtag called it. And I'm not sure I picked up on that. But I think my brain turned off every time I saw a table.
That's fair. That's fair. She was so Mufasing all that business. When I'm gone. Oh, when I'm not here anymore. It was so obvious. You got poor Reborn, who's also standing around being like, man, I sure was a rough warrior in the past. I sure don't know what I'd do if the princess ever was gone. I'd probably lose my biscuits and kill somebody. He's just like, you're just like, okay. Obviously, princess is dead. Maybe in an anime way, dead. But all the same. Gone for now, and Reborn's gonna lose it. That was so obvious going into this. What I didn't expect, possibly from coming from MMOs, was me, the Warrior of Light, being involved in any way.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of expected it. I knew there was gonna be a reckoning. Like clearly they were beating us over the head with the fact that the Syndicate are up to no good. While I did not really pick up on anything going on with the Sultana. I was like from the get-go, I'm like, Ilbert is sus AF. This man is up to no good, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna put a knife in Reborn's back. Nope, cut his arm off, but pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, that I didn't see that one coming actually.
I mean, not the first few quests with Ilbert, but here. You know what? I'm gonna read into you, Kyle. If my brain turned off every time I saw the table in Ul'dah, I think your brain turned off because you already mentioned it during the weapon crate quests, because that's when Ilbert starts being a total sus ass.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And there's one point where they're like, this is the Duskwights. And I'm a Duskwhite. And then they just forget it. And I've lost interest again. There was a brief moment where I thought I was going to get tied in. And no, didn't happen. And then they pull one of the most dangerous switcheroos for completing this game. You go to the edge of the throne room and you're like, awesome. It's time. Minfilia's here. We got her back. Everyone's gathered. Let's do this. And they're like, oh, I forgot. You gotta go into the desert for a hot moment and stand there. And it was just brutal. And in the end, I realized it was genius. But what
it's this moment to reflect.
Moment. Yeah.
It's this moment for you as your character. Like you're standing there. It's a train station where you go and you find the vial. And you're just if it's gameplay, but it could have been a cinematic where it's like this like slow pan and somber music plays and your character kind of looks out to the horizon, kind of because I thought the same thing. But then when they frame you for murder, my brain goes, oh, that was the calm before the storm. But they had me play it instead of showing it to me in a cinematic. And damned if I'm going to complain about it, because I've been complaining about too many cinematics. Like I thought that was actually, like, in retrospect, clever. It was a clever moment because, like you said, I too wasn't really thinking about where I fit into all of this in terms of the finale. I knew shit was going to hit the fan with the Syndicate, but your character isn't really involved with them. Yeah, you're in the room when the mini D-bag starts popping off like every time. What the hell is his name? I made a note here. Like you're in the room, but you don't really interact with them. It's not like you go on quests with them. They didn't do the thing where I kind of expected it to go, where I thought he was going to like be a quest giver and you were going to go do stuff for him. And he found out, nope, he made you go do a bunch of terrible stuff.
No, they spend like half a moment being like, oh, maybe he's a good guy. And then immediately cutscene you're not there for. What an evil bastard. And then he does this great, like, oh, poison in the drink. And then immediately walks in the throne room and just starts throwing down and pissing everybody off.
I didn't love the build up to the throwdown in Ul'dah, but what a payoff. Like, it was very cool. I really like Reborn, and I've been dying to see him throw down. And hi, I'm a Star Wars fan. I love seeing people get their arms cut off and continue fighting.
Well, you know what? It is fascinating to me that it worked. There are moments like his fight scene there where you're like, wow, this is pretty damn good animation. Like, I am really digging this. This is anime levels. The swords are clashing. They kick a pillar at each other. Well done. And then there's the bizarre Gary's Mod face animation of him slashing the Lalafell in half. But it works. It pauses. He shakes his head and shock extends across his face. It kind of breaks the system, but it sells it.
I don't know if it improves, if animation improves or not. We're going to talk probably next week about, taking our first steps into Ishgard. And I will say there is a clear line drawn in the sand of quality. The first damn in-game cinematic, which isn't even all that impressive that you kick off. You're like, oh, okay, we've got an additional layer of polish. I'm assuming that extends to things like the animation of faces and whatnot. But I haven't come across anything as dramatic as the ending of A Realm Reborn here. But yeah, it's a little rough around the edges. I'm still, though, again, coming from other MMOs and thinking about, what I was doing in World of Warcraft in 2015, this is still impressive as all get out in terms of how these in-game cinematics look, how they play out, the action that is on display.
Even watching Ghost Garrosh in 2020, this is pretty impressive. Eventually, you are cut free, and I'm like, all right. Let's do it. And you run. And I was a little, I didn't want to fight ads or anything in that moment, but I was a little disappointed I just ran away. And then it just goes full Mass Effect Underground as each character kind of gets their cinematic power. And we clearly divide up the group, which I'm really excited for because I love a good get the team back together.
Yeah, I do too. I didn't really think about it until just this moment where you're talking about it. I would have liked a little more gameplay there. I was mad, man. I was really annoyed and angry. I wanted to murder some people.
Yeah, you were tied up for the whole thing, and you want to bust out a little bit. Maybe a little running in the catacombs, in the tunnels would have been nice. Just fighting some stuff, but it propelled towards the end. And Alphino's ridiculous hat.
Alphino was wearing a hat. Oh,
yeah,
with his hood up.
His hood up, yeah.
His hood up, and he actually had the Scion goggle things on. I still have no idea what those do. I feel like an ether breather or something.
You can see the ether business, and I think they help you find titans being summoned.
I feel like we're gonna get some comments on that one. I don't know.
At this
it's
point,
a scouter.
It's the game's fault that we don't understand it. Okay, maybe it goes into it more later. They can correct us, but for now, I blame the game.
I'm a Scion. Where's mine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Orion J gets 7 pairs of goggles.
Orion J is like your grandma who has to wear glasses and then wears the sunglasses that fits over the glasses for driving.
Yeah.
That's Orion J.
I don't really know what's going on there. Granted, my timeline is all screwy because I also did Coils of Bahamut and he was still in the Waking Sands when everyone else had already left. And now he's talking with the bad guys. I'm frankly lost on him.
I love that you mentioned that everyone got kind of their power scene where we get to see him doing something interesting, except Minfilia.
Yeah, except for Minfilia, who seems like she's gonna be I'll distract them by getting captured, and runs off with your lantern. It's just awful. Oh,
that sure does seem to be her power at the moment.
I really enjoy a good, responsible, mature character. And they're just letting me down. We need something, daggers out of the dress or something. It ain't right.
I guess the big thing with her is that Heidelin speaks to her, at least so she says, because it's at this point in the game, it's been a long time since we've been told to hear, think, feel. So yeah, the whole state of the world is interesting. I too am very excited to get the band back together. I would imagine these characters aren't going to die off screen.
I'd assume not. No, even minor characters have been dealt with in big story moments. So I fully expect we're going to kind of go out much like our Garrus of the past, find them working other jobs, too busy to kind of come back. Plus, you're now off in Ishgard where they can't go. naturally gameplay needs to exist. So you don't get arrested the second you end up in another city, which is kind of nice.
The first thing I did was port over to Ul'dah. I'm like, did they do something here?
I know.
No.
I was a little concerned. I was thinking about that too, because they have a board and they have all the shops you'd need. So maybe.
Yeah, it's a good state to be in heading into the next expansion. After having spent essentially all of A Realm Reborn hanging out with the Scions, it's cool to see them kind of cast the wind, the band broken up, except for, of course, everyone's favorite Alphino, who you're going to hang out with and go into the next expansion.
There is an opportunity for Alphino to really work. I know it's been said that it's Yoshi P's favorite character. Of course, the Dungeon Master loves his Gandalf, loves his quest giver. And Alphino's always like, can you do this for me? And sends you off. Voice actor got a little better, which is nice, but it's still. Alphino's at his lowest low, and Tatara comes in, and she's like, no, Alphino, feel better. I'm like, you stop. He's having a moment. Let this man feel awful. And then we can build him back up later on. I would love if Ishgard becomes like a buddy cop movie of Alphino and I learning to respect each other. And I'm just not an errand boy now. I know I'll nod. I'll nod to what he says, yes. But I really hope he matures out of this experience.
That was a side quest arc that I really enjoyed, was Tataru. By the end of it, because I hadn't really paid too much attention to her through the majority of A Realm Reborn, and towards the end, where she's like, "No, I want to learn how to fight. I want to be a decent bodyguard." I found that really charming.
Yeah, I just in general showing character evolution on what was a side character in the moment. Her asides as you go in and out of the buildings have been fabulous, as she's wanting to be a street performer and learning to juggle. It's worth it when you go into the Rising Stones and just talking to everybody. Much like when you finish the Mass Effect mission, you go around and talk to everybody and see if they're dateable. It's kind of the same thing. I really enjoyed particularly stopping by and seeing her evolution of her character that eventually led her to break off and try to become an adventurer.
Yeah. And that's too, I know I've said that I don't love the double loading, but the way that it allows them to move people around in the space, every time you would go back, Tataru was doing something different, and Thancred, one time I went back and Thancred was sitting in a chair and he was just playing with his knife, but he wasn't doing it any other time. I was just like, that's great. And the Scions move in and out, and just that kind of, like you said months ago now, where you're just people move around in the space, and how nice is that in terms of a storytelling device? It makes the world feel alive outside of just the players itself. It makes the characters feel alive, they're busy, they're a part of the story, they have things to go and do. It wasn't something I expected to be impressed by. I guess also it's just something I didn't expect to be in the game.
I'm just excited to hang out with Lord McHandsome soon, the Lord Commander there.
Oh, good God. Yes, I have Matt. The next week, man. Next week. I need a little more time with Ishgard. I got distracted. Went and did the Dark Knight stuff, which I also want to talk about. I need to think about what the arc is there, what I want to talk about first when it comes to Heaven's Ward. But so far, it has completely charmed my pants off. It has lived up to the hype, I guess, is where I'll leave my thoughts with Final Fantasy XIV right now. We've already declared that we're going to be, continuing to put out videos and play through this and experience this together, which I'm really stoked about. I'm dying to play through a game with you, even if we're not always on playing together. We're experiencing this story basically simultaneously. Oh, man,
I'm an astrologian now, so my cues are instant. Yes, take advantage. I love it.
I've definitely been happy to be wrong in the past, but I'm really, really happy to be wrong this time. I'm excited to have another MMO that I'm excited to go and play. When I have extra time, everyone's like, stream. And I'm like, yeah, at the moment, it is this thing I enjoy. It's oh, I've got an extra hour or two. I'm going to go play Final Fantasy. That's what I'm going to go do. I don't have a schedule at the moment, which is why I haven't started streaming it. But I'm looking forward to it. It reminds me of, the days when WoW was my main game, of when the Old Republic was my main game, and I would think about the game when I wasn't playing it. And that's where I'm at right now. It's to me, that is the sign of a great MMO.
Yeah. The project game that also lets you play with friends is an amazing thing. And MMOs of the past have given me that opportunity. But the amount of things to do is what's really captured me, because sometimes I feel like the main story quest. Other times I might just go explore. Might go do some hunting logs or something weird like that. It is supplying so many different modes of gameplay, and just chilling in Limsa is a delight. So,
Yeah,
the game is a delight.
As I've said in the past, I like MMOs because for me, they're relaxing, and this is a damn relaxing MMO that I feel respects me for paying attention, even if I personally zoned out during table meetings.
It's fine. Fine. Weapon crates, table meetings, we all have our thing.
When you can, go play Final Fantasy. I liked it. I like it, and I'll be sticking with it. So anyways, that's going to bring us to the end of this one. If you're watching on YouTube, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We upload every Wednesday morning. And if you want to get in touch with us personally, I'm on Twitter at Garrett Art. Kyle, you are at Kyle Ferguson, 2 S's in Ferguson. You can also send an email to feedback@startgrindinggear.com. Thanks so much, everybody. We got a ton of new subs at the last one, so thank you for joining us and planting your flag and saying, yeah, I want to see more videos. So keep it coming. Until next time, good luck and have fun.
You know, having a plan is pretty good for a story-based game, it finds out.